In a YouTube video, a group of young black individuals discuss the idea of a woman's quote unquote body count. They talk about how women should hide how many men they've been with out of shame. That a woman is devalued in proportion to her promiscuity. Do you think there is anything to the claims made in this video? Does the black community have an epidemic of this sort of misogyny? Or is this no different than what you can find in any other ethnic space? Okay. Yeah. So, fuck. The channel is like 8 at something. Fuck. I forget. I just fell out of my mind.
At the table, I
8
think,
at the
or
table,
something
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is the table.
Yeah. And you have a group of individuals who were talking all black, and it gets wild in my opinion. I don't know. It gets pretty wild. And I'll put the link in chat for you all.
Yeah, it gets pretty wild.
And hold on. And from there, they make a lot of accusations as to like how women should act, how they should be. It's okay. Maybe I'll get to that later. I'll get to. There's another part to this later, and I'll get to that. But I thought it was pretty rough to listen to for me. And it was men and women, and a lot of the women were agreeing with a lot of the men, and what I thought were misogynist claims. But I'm really curious what you all have to say about this. All right.
Woo!
So we will opening statements. We'll go to with Bam.
Like I think grown men talking about body count is really weird in general. Like I just don't think that's what adults do. Like high school, sure, but like you 32, bro. Like I don't know. Outside of that, like the real, I was about to say, like the real life position on this, not like the internet super pro sexual position, is that the average person does care about their partner's sexual history, not just from a health perspective, but from like just like the maybe not even, if not the number of people they've been with, the types of people they've been with. Like if you, a lot of people would care if they do their partner, and this isn't like this isn't biased. This goes with all genders. If they knew their partner had slept with 3 of their friends, it's something they would, like, the average person would probably concern themselves with. So although like we shouldn't care, if we do as a society, and I don't think that like pretending that we don't like helps us in any way.
Okay. Chris.
Yeah, there was a lot of misogynist things being said, and even when they said things I can agree with about being honest with your partner, about and like accepting their partner, and being able to trust them, they love the use of the word hoe and whore. Like I don't think that's necessary, and I don't think even like I think Bam said it right. Like I don't think the body count should matter. The type of people you associate and like sleep with should matter, right? If I don't, I've had some situations where some people have some crazy exes, right? Some they associated with some dangerous people, and that should matter. I should be able to know that. As far as how many people you slept with, I don't really care. Like that doesn't bother me at all, and I don't think that devalues you as a person in any way. But like even again, the types of people you're with, I think that even matters with what type of people you're friends with, not even just who you're sleeping with. But, yeah.
Wiggle. Okay. All right. Fanatiq.
Yeah, look, you can't force a sexual revolution on everyone. Different people have different values and different ideas about what these things mean. So if you have like a particularly conservative dude, like he might be completely turned off by a woman's like, like insane body count. Some people are going to be trying to avoid like a crazy body count for themselves. I'm one of those people. I don't want like a super high body count. I'm already ashamed about my body count as it is. I'm trying to minimize that, right? So I would think for those people, if that's their value system, then I think that they're entitled to, like, I would say, finding a person that like matches them in that way. I think we should always probably strive for some sort of moral symmetry whenever we're looking for, especially like life partners. I don't think it's like appropriate to necessarily diminish like what someone holds valuable. For me, for example, I hold it incredibly important that the woman that I'm spending the rest of my life with is black. And you know, the one night stands are those things that can be the white wives, but like my wife is going to be a black woman, right? That's important to me. Race might not be as important to everyone else, right? I don't think it's necessarily chauvinist to say so. I think there is like some foundation to the idea, the differences between the way people value wives of, or just the way people value body counts. I think there's some merit to to those arguments. I don't think it's necessarily just hatred of women or any sort of misogyny. But I guess there's so much more to get into. I guess we'll get into that in the open panel.
Legal.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like, to me at least, matters who you've been with, depending on like if I know them. If I know them, like, I'd be lying if I said I didn't. Like, if I found out like you smashed like the homies or someone that like I've copped from or something, I want to know the same way you want to know. Like, other than that, I think it's about frequency. Like, there's a very specific thing, man. Like, this boy does not have that level of stamina. Like, if you fucking like you fucking like you're gonna need somebody else. Like, you're gonna need somebody. I'm a laid back dude. I like smashing. I don't like smashing every hour or some shit like this. And if you're someone who
No, you
has
gotta
like some
step that up.
high, if you're someone who has this high sex drive, extreme high sex drive, and I find out you got like mad fucking like body count, I'll be like, maybe, you know, you need a friend. You need me and a friend or something. And I'm an emotionally monogamous kind of individual. So like, you know, it's like what Fanatiq was saying, that like you pair with the people that are more like that have the same kind of moral systems as you. It's not really like a something I'd look down upon you for or something. It's just more of like we're probably better as like friends or something.
Oh man. Oh boy. Leave it alone for now. All right, Tamale.
That was for Fnatic though. That was a lot of special wording to get around what you actually were meaning to say. But we'll get to that in the open panel, like you said. That video was really hard to watch. I was actually like wild, and I was like, holy shit, these guys are bugging. At one point. We went from saying that a woman should be honest with their partner because honesty is good. And if you tell that person and they don't like it, then they get to leave, to going like, nah, they should hide it because then they're going to be considered a whore, to like, wait, but like, I'm okay with it. I love whores, disregarding the fact that whores are people who get paid for sex and not people who sleep around a lot. However, they decided to use it colloquially. And then they went to like, oh, well, I'm just trying to say, in this specific example, I'm not trying to speak generally, but I'm going to make a general statement and then say it's for this specific example. It was really, really weird to see how hard these guys were trying to justify. And like you said, some of the women were agreeing with in some of the points. Is like, what's happening? But I mean, I guess having that opinion is fine in and of itself. Like, if you have that opinion, I wouldn't associate with people probably who thinks that way. Or if I did, it probably would be to be like, yeah, you're being a bit misogynistic. I think, yeah, that's crazy. Your body count doesn't matter. You don't lose a part of your soul for how many people you sleep with, despite that Jesus website saying it.
Old time.
It just doesn't happen. The only thing you should care about is if they have STDs or not, and if their partners are people who would be someone who's gonna like fucking fight you or harm you because whatever stupid reason, right? Like, those things should matter. Other than that, body counts don't fucking matter.
Okay. All right. Moving on. We have. Oh man, everything just moved to my screen. So we'll go to Django.
In a vacuum, body count means nothing. It's dependent on who you're with, because you have to be sexually compatible for a relationship to work. If someone has a really high sex drive, the other person doesn't. If someone likes multiple partners, the other one doesn't. These are all things that should come into play. And if someone's past really bothers you, it's kind of messed up to keep that a secret from someone, even if that person is being intolerant. You probably shouldn't keep it a secret just for the chance for them to find out, because that can cause a lot of. I mean, it's fucked up. In that same boat, again, like I don't think it really like body count doesn't mean anything again in a vacuum. There are certain things you can learn from it. So, for example, the reason someone may have a high body count, maybe they people are able to hit their insecurities in a way that they're able to manipulate them into having sex. You can learn things about a person, but again, like on its own, it just means nothing. It's just a measurements for sexual compatibility, and you can, I guess, learn more things about them. It's just not as important. In the video, yeah, they agreed a lot. I think the word whore doesn't matter as much as some people make it. It depends on what someone means by that. If they have a negative connotation when they say that, then obviously that's messed up. But it is kind of a word that people use for someone who sleeps around a lot. So even if it is not technically the right word, that's how people use it. If people use it in a negative way, I think we should change that to a positive way, because it's really not a bad thing.
Okay. Let's go to GSU Gambit.
Yeah, so I have this is weird to me hearing some of these takes. They just sound trash, but I have a personal opinion on this, but I also understand that there's a public opinion. So me, I'm a person that generally doesn't care at all. There's a lot of wild activity I did in college and after college before I got into a long-term relationship. And because of that, it completely changed my view on body count. I think like maybe like before college, like it's kind of weird to just be like like out here having tremendous amount of sex. And I also think like later in life, when you're more established, you have more to lose. So it's kind of weird to be irresponsible in that way. But I think there's a period of years that I think people should be more explorative, because a lot of people that end up later in age, that's why they start to have problems, because they never had that like what do people call it, like whole phase or whatever. But so that's my personal opinion. But I understand that though this is my personal opinion, there's a wide amount of people, I would even say most men and women across all cultures, that have this view that sex count matters. So when people say it doesn't matter, it's just a number, is weird to me, because like most people care about it. Like we can see, just like they were saying in the video, most women value people more who can have sex easily. And that's like women buying into it, and most men buy into it as well. So like I don't understand the whole concept of it's just a number. You can say, oh, it's a social construct, but if most people on earth care about it, that means that this thing has some sort of value, whether you think it's positive or negative or not. But yeah, that's generally how I feel about it. I don't typically care, depending on what age a person is, but I understand that most people do care, and we'll probably talk more. I do think one thing that Django brought up that I thought was really good from the video was the reason why people might have a high body count. If you're somebody that's easily tricked, that seems to point to some sort of character flaw in being able to like judge others. So I do think particularly that itself is pretty weird. But if somebody is just living freely, I don't care, even though I understand that like most of the public cares.
Yeah.
But all right, let's just jump into it.
Jay Cook said
Oh
they
wait,
Jay
did.
yeah, I
Cook
have to
didn't,
go.
yeah.
I have
Oh,
to
I'm
go.
sorry.
Oh,
No,
no,
we're not let women talk on this.
Mm.
No, I'm joking.
Oh, I do have your last point actually, GSU. I do want to talk about. We will talk about that. But to answer the question, sorry, let me pull it back up. No, okay. So I listened to I was working, so I didn't watch the video. I just listened to it. And it was pretty cringe in my opinion. Like I don't have a problem with saying words. I think words are words, like saying whore is fine, but I guess for me it was the amount of times that they said it, and then the fact that they, like, always it felt like they were always emphasizing on the word. It was very misogynoir to me, and I feel like, the women agreeing with the men to the extent that they were was so I was shocked. Uh, I just didn't like the video altogether. But yeah, to Django's point, I agree. Like you shouldn't be basing someone's your partners, because I think that's ultimately what they were like the point of it was like you shouldn't be basing your partner's value or how you see them based on how many people they've slept with. I feel like that's so like I think it was Bam or maybe it was Chris. It's very sophomoric. It literally has nothing. There's so many other ways to judge a person. And if you spend time with this person, if you know this person's friend group, if you know how they were raised, like there are other ways besides sex to base base your judgment off of someone. And I had something else to say. Uh, what else did I not get? Yeah, I guess that was it. Oh, I didn't get the getting tricked part of the conversation.
Getting duped by
Oh,
like a guy playing the game. Like he's not
yeah.
actually into you. He's just trying to get in your pants and dip.
But like to you, it seems the opposite. It seems like he's really invested. And
Right. That's getting tricked. It can't be
Yeah.
for some reason that you might also just want to.
Yeah, but then I feel like that is again like you're a child when that happens. Like you're young, it happens. But like I don't know
There's
adults,
That
grown
or
happens
I
to
ass
don't hang
adults.
adults
around
doing that
adults.
shit.
That,
There's grown
that
ass
happens to
adults
people
doing
of
that shit.
all ages. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
Yeah, I
not
think they was
just
I
talking about
don't
like
hang
a
around
pattern of the
adults that
behavior.
like
Yeah.
get tricked. That just didn't make any sense to me.
I
Oh
mean,
no
it's
no no
it's
no
not all
no.
the time. It's one scenario, and usually, yes, it's
It doesn't
when
have
you're
to
younger
be.
and when before you have experience with people trying to do that to you. It depends on who you are as a person, how much
Yeah.
experience you have, like analyzing what people say to you, and like if they're trying to be manipulative, stuff like that. Just whatever.
It doesn't have to be like, on another adult. Like it could be there's adults that do that shit to like women that are like college age, or like adults that are
Yeah.
like older women that go to younger guys because they're looking for something and they manipulate them.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
also there's a lot of like little social things that you can do with people that even if you know it's happening, you feel good. And one of the things that people will do a lot with women, especially, is they'll play off insecurities. Again, this is a subcategory. This isn't every woman. Some women just
Yeah.
like to fuck.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm just saying, like some people will try to play off insecurities, make that person feel vulnerable with them, and use that against them.
But isn't that like predatory? Like they weren't saying the behavior that it was. It's predatory behavior. It's
Yes,
That doesn't mean that
it's a type of
you
manipulation.
can't.
yeah, it's
That
yeah,
doesn't.
it's manipulative.
That's
Rega-
trigger.
That's
Predatory
not
regardless
a
has
of
too
whether
many
it's
negative
relationship.
regardless
connotations.
of
That's
whether
not
it's manipulation, if you can't detect it, that's a character flaw. I think that was the
That's
point.
not necessarily
No.
true.
What?
It,
What?
it depends
It's
on
in
if it's a
it's
pattern. If
it
something happening
Oh,
once is
Right.
sure.
versus like
Sh-
something happening
Sure.
like
You
17 times.
Yeah, if
yeah,
you have
you
a
can
pattern of
identify
being
that.
manipulated by
it,
others and you fail to realize it over and over and over again, that is
yes.
a
So you need
character
to
But
go
flaw.
to
but that's
I would
therapy.
that's an internal. That's like an internal character flaw. That's like if I'm looking at myself, how do I improve myself?
What is
Well,
an
I look at the
external
world
character
is
flaw?
cruel. I say the world is cruel. There's people in the world that do this thing. If I want to exist in the world, I do this thing to exist in the current world. It's not like a this is a character flaw in the sense that like I should have to do this thing. No, this is something that you have to acknowledge that you have to do because of the circumstances you're in.
And
Like you do bad deeds in an area that in order to survive type mentality. And so
Uh,
you
I thought we
do
were talking
things
about
because of the
gullibility.
to be
I
fair,
don't get.
to,
Yeah,
to
I
yeah.
be
don't get
clear,
where Wiggle
I
is
think we're
going.
talking about. I think we're talking about women who develop
Or
feelings for
men.
guys. Okay,
No, the
we're
video
You
talking
is
about
should.
women in the
You
specifically about
video.
should.
women.
Subject to
Yeah,
The
subject
video
you're
is
to
not. No,
specifically
no,
about women.
I'm not disagreeing with that. But in the context of the video, which is what I'm trying to stick to right now, is that we're right now talking about women who are falling for men who have no intention of being with them in a long-term relationship, but just sleeping with them and leaving. That's what we're talking about. Now, we're blaming the fact that that could happen multiple times to someone who is not insightful enough to realize that someone
Yes.
doesn't actually care for them, and saying like they are the blame for this happening to them over and over and over again.
Yes.
And to an extent,
Yes.
yes, they have that agency. They should have some agency to be like, okay,
Nah,
if you're
son.
if
Come
you're
on,
getting
son.
if you're getting duped, or if you're getting like if someone is if you are in a neighborhood, we can both acknowledge that something is bad and that something is also the fault of person. If someone's in a neighborhood, a bad part of town, and they got their jewelry on, and know they're likely going to get robbed, and they get robbed. Well, now we say, okay, we'll file a police report. We're gonna get the people who did it. Blah blah blah. But like, why were you there? Right? Like,
What?
why would you
Come on,
be
son.
there?
Like I'm saying,
No.
I'm saying they can blame themselves, but like from an outward perspective, going and blaming them is pretty fucked up.
Yeah,
Like, I can blame
blame and
myself,
acknowledging that
absolutely.
but like,
Why not?
No.
From an
There's a
outside
difference-
perspective.
So there's a difference between acknowledging, like, hey, the guy clearly a dickhead here. Clearly, he's the bad part. But
Yes.
if you are repeatedly getting in this situation, you have to
Yeah.
learn from this. You can't just
Right.
keep getting there.
Yeah.
That's all we're
Right.
saying.
And let's not forget about the fact that the vast majority of these cases, these dudes, the reason why they're talking about the women is because they're talking about their prospects, right? Like, I know that the dude that's doing this is a douchebag, but guess what? I don't have to be with that douchebag. I don't have to worry about him. He's not part of my life, right? What they literally voiced that their main concern was about the idea that, man, if she has this much gullibility, then that means I don't know what's going to be happening when she leaves my house. If niggas can get in her head that easily and get them
Exactly.
draws,
But
that's
that was
problematic
also
for me.
cringe. Like,
That
what?
was
No,
so
this-
what?
Well, help me
No,
understand.
Well,
Wait, tell me if it's tell me if it's rude. Tell me if this sounds logically deductible, right? Like, if the idea is this person has no ability, like, just hypothetically, okay? If this person has no ability to say no to niggas, then it sounds like if
Yes.
she's not in my presence and there's a nigga there that's predatory enough, because we know niggas can be predatory, then that sounds like that individual is going to get some mileage with my wife in these scenarios. Does that sound reasonable at all?
No.
I think you
I
were
see.
assuming an
Shit.
extra step there. So the problem isn't just that she's gullible enough to not say no. The problem is that she's gullible enough for someone to walk up to her, pretend like they have feelings, want to start a relationship, and then she just is like, "Oh yeah, he's probably being serious." But that doesn't mean that that doesn't mean she's gonna cheat on you. These aren't.
Yeah, those are two different things.
She might be like, "Well, listen, you may love
I
me.
don't-
I am happily married."
Well,
I think
sure.
somewhat.
I think being
Go
gullible
ahead.
is bad enough in itself. Like, I don't think it has to be like the fact
Sure.
that she's cheating. I think we can acknowledge that's like its own issue. Something I wanted to point to that like multiple people have brought up in the conversation. Like, did you feel like that conversation was like over the top? Did y'all feel like that conversation
not at
was
all.
different?
I thought it was a
I'm
regular
like that was
conversation.
a regular. That's the average.
Yeah,
position.
yeah,
That's
there's
how
so
average
many
people have a
shows like
conversation.
this.
Yeah,
For
Ben,
most
Ben,
part,
this
yeah.
is a really good call out.
This
I
was
think
like tame.
if this conversation was shocking to you, you should have more conversation. Something is wrong because this shit happens every day, all day, everywhere. Like, there is nowhere these conversations aren't happening.
I don't
So
disagree.
Well, to be a little bit more charitable,
I
to
disagree
Jay-
with it.
No, to be a
I
little bit
do
more
too.
charitable to Jay, like, to be honest with you, these are conversations that are always had, but these are typically conversations that are had amongst men, right? Men will be talking about what their desires are amongst other men. I could totally understand why you as a female would not be privy to all of this, like to this conversation. It's just that now we're living in a more transparent age with social media and people trying to use their platforms and stuff like that. So I would never ever like impute that on you. I don't think that's what he was doing either. But I wouldn't try to like aim that at you per se. But yeah, this is very, very I think these are very common positions that most men would have.
Yeah, that's true.
Women too.
I don't agree with that, and I hate it.
I think a lot of guys do.
Yeah, there's exceptions, but sure.
You
I'm
don't
sorry, go
say
ahead.
you hate it, but you understand that it's the most common theme in society to hold that position, right? We can say that we're against it, but we can't ignore the reality that most people hold this position.
Yeah,
Something that-
yeah.
Something that's really important also that they actually, sorry, keep going. I've lost it for a second. Keep going.
Sorry, that was my fault.
Sure.
Yeah, I never disagreed with the fact that this is the commonly held belief. It just shouldn't be. I don't think it should be. It's terrible. It's
Well,
harmful.
why be shocked? No, so I was talking more to you than I was Jay Cook, but you said this was shocking and you couldn't believe it was happening.
There's so
How
many
do
shows
you
like this.
do you never talk to most Americans? Like, how
No,
could
it's-
you
Well,
possibly
I don't
not
think most people talk to
understand
most
that this is-
Americans. I don't think most people talk to most Americans, but I don't think that there are a level of like. I was just shocked that this was on the
On
internet in
YouTube?
the first place. Yeah, I don't
There's
know. I
so
was
many
just,
shows
I
that
was
are
just fucking
like
Come on,
blown.
Jamali.
There's
I
so-
Wait, is
No,
Somali, stop.
honest,
I don't-
honestly, this
wait,
was
wait,
like a very moderate Like,
Yes,
I
this
don't,
yeah.
virtue signal is
I don't
wild.
watch a lot of this content. That
Okay,
This
I got
whole
you.
sphere
That's-
is
You don't
you're living in a
larger
bubble.
than
For everyone who's not living in a bubble.
Twitch politics. Like, it is not a small thing. There's more people watching like Manosphere content like that than there are like that will ever watch. I don't know, the largest Twitch political streamer. Like, it's a very large space, and that was like pretty tame. Like,
This-
I
it
walked
sounded
into
like
it
my
like
I agree that
friends
the
were-
discussion. I agree that the discussion itself.
On that subject, like, well, I didn't find that video directly. That 8 at the table video, I didn't find it directly. Instead, I found it on another guy who was reacting to it, and whatever's in the 8 video, right? This guy, he says he's red pilled. Like, he's like a rap song about like how he's red pilled. Like, and he was black. He's an African American guy. Like, that was worse. What he said was so much worse. like however crazy he thought this video.
Should have linked that video.
Wait, I want to see it. Yeah.
Yeah, you should have linked that
I want to see it.
video.
Get the link in. I want to see it.
I'll link it to you. It's like, but
I thought
no,
I thought the
there's a lot.
conversation was pretty tame between everyone involved, and that everyone was very respectful of each other, and obviously they had a pretty good conversation about it. I just thought that their positions were shit.
I don't think I think they're because they're still using some language behind certain things that just sounds like stigmatizing. Like, that's an issue I have. But as far as like, there's some opinions that they had that I agree with. As far as like, if you have a high sexual body count, if you are sexually active a lot of the times, and you're getting with somebody who's mostly monogamous, right? And they have certain ideas of like what they like, right, what they want. You should be honest with that person, and if they really love you, they should accept you for that, right? I think it's when you start hiding things from your partner, that gets really weird, right? It gets real, and people have boundaries. People have things that they want to get out and open. I think a lot of times people don't really care about these things. If you like a person enough, right? These being honest with your partner about certain things in your past, could help strengthen a relationship. I think a lot of people would just have issues, a lot of monogamous minded people, right? Just they have fears about people who aren't.
Yeah,
right?
all the screens just went.
It's
black.
not necessarily even a fear. It could be just
hold on one second. Prime, if you put a window on top of StreamYard, it makes all the blocks
my
black.
God, sorry.
Yeah,
I had to do that for a quick second. Sorry guys.
No
I
problem.
apologize. The whole thing went black for a second.
Yeah. So what I was going to say, it's not even a matter of necessarily being afraid. Sometimes it is a matter of mismatch, and it is value. Jay Cook,
Yeah,
I don't think that they're ever I don't think that they were ever at a point of just trying to say we're assigning all of the value based on this. As I demonstrated towards the end of the conversation, they've gotten a back and forth in which he said, even if yes, if a woman had been in some sort of a 2-male threesome, that he said if I heard that news, if I really like this chick, then we're gonna have to work through it or whatever. But if I don't particularly like her, then I'm out, right? So even he was recognizing that's not the only thing, and clearly when you're creating a system, or when you're trying to say this is a deal breaker. That doesn't mean that that's the only value, right? A deal breaker is one thing, but it could still be a 15 part. You know what I mean? These are all of my metrics for what makes someone compatible. But if this one thing is there, then it's a deal breaker, right? And for example, for me, Christianity. If a person that I'm trying to marry is not a Christian, that's a deal breaker for me. I think it's an important thing. Now that doesn't mean that's their entire value, right? There's just that's just one of the features, I would say. And I think that's reasonable. And for everyone else saying, oh man, this is just disgusting, and blah, blah, blah. I guess, your posturing doesn't really mean anything, right? Because at the end of the day, people, when choosing their life partners, they have to determine what's important to them. So maybe for some people, religion means nothing, right? Religion is particularly important to me, right? I'm not a Christian in name only. So then in that case, for me, it's going to be really important. But for some people who might be only nominally Christian, then that thing won't matter, right? For some people, body count might matter more so than others. And I'm going to go ahead and say one last thing that I think is really what a lot of people won't say. The reason why men are so uncomfortable with crazy high body counts is because of male insecurity about their own sexual performance. I'm just putting that out there.
Well, I think yes,
Ding, 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 ding.
that's a big part.
Argument
However,
about confidence. male confidence. Like if you as a guy have a high, they even said in this video, like if sorry, I'm getting echo.
Yeah.
Good now.
Keep
Okay.
going.
Yeah, if you as a guy have a high body count, like they even said it, like you get like a
You're the
high
man.
fives, everyone's gonna congratulate you. You're gonna you get a parade. As a woman or as a female presenting person, it is the exact opposite. Why is that? It makes no sense to me.
It's only
I
that way.
think that
But
I think that
part of that comes from
specifically has
that.
to deal with something like okay, three things. Number one, like the idea that like everyone in this, well, I'm not going to say everyone, but I believe a majority of people in this chat, just because we're adults, do care somewhat about body count. Maybe it's not high, but you like, I'm sure you
What's
would like.
high?
Oh man.
But well, I know I'm not. I'm saying.
It's
That's
time.
not the point. The point I'm saying is, I think that
When it's
like
unhealthy,
a lot
when
of
it's
you
at
would be concerned.
20,000.
A lot of you would be concerned with going into a relationship with a potential virgin. Like a lot of people, like at that point that you have sexual experience, don't want to like
For
walk
sure.
through that walk another person
For
through that. You
sure.
want someone who's like, oh, okay, I want you to have a level of experience. So like the people saying I don't care about sexual experience, a lot of y'all probably still do, like within a degree.
Nah,
Number
it's
two,
really easy to communicate about
Yeah.
these
God,
things.
well,
But
I'm-
okay, go
as
ahead.
Soon as
Go,
Bam is
go
done,
ahead. No,
I'm
no,
going
no.
to
Let, yeah,
fight.
let
No,
him.
no. He said some of us, and I'm
No,
one of those
Bam,
people.
no, Bam, please.
yeah, I'm almost done. Number two, I'm super black pill. I think within certain ranges, like obviously this happens through communication, understanding your partner. Like sometimes it is better to lie. Like like legitimately there's situations to where if you know your sexual history is something that's like can be really off-putting to a partner, but it's not a descriptor of like you as a person. Like it can legitimately be better to lie. Like as a man or a woman, I have very close friends who have slept with over 250 women. That is the girls involved probably don't want to hear that. Like he usually says around like he says go to numbers like 30. Like I've had sex, but they don't want to hear about 250. Like there's nothing
How
that
do
can
you
be gained
keep
from
track of that many people? Why?
Uh,
That's the more
I hope
sus
you're
part
getting
of that.
Justin
right.
in the chat.
It is.
Everyone at that point.
It is.
Well,
And
that's
You-
because it's usually a
I forgot
lie.
my last point, but that's pretty much it. I
So-
think
You
that
have
like
to.
certain people can lie if you know that like the truth doesn't benefit you.
Okay.
Like ignorance is bliss.
So I'm
But
gonna
see, that's the thing.
I'm gonna
I
fight.
was
I'm gonna fight for a
Go ahead.
second now, and then we'll let Hope in because I'm very excited that apparently Hope has been able to work out this issue. But yeah, I'm gonna have to fight. Holy shit! Right? Like like the apologists here for people who for this mindset that uh, saying that well you know it's okay, right, because some people are just kind of uncomfortable with these things, right. It's okay because like our society has taught and it has, right, it has taught us that women are simply less valuable, right, like their value is inverse to the number of people they've been with, right, and it's like, well, yeah, you know, some people have a preference, right, yeah, well, some people are assholes, right. Some people have bought into misogyny, and some people bought into bigotry, right? Like this idea that
This is misogyny, but go ahead.
you don't. Sorry,
I don't necessarily think this is misogyny.
you don't
Well-
think it's. You don't think. You don't think.
I don't know how-
anything
I don't
you
know how
said
you
that,
say that.
that
Come
was
on.
You don't have to repeat it
misogynistic,
back to
right?
me, man. This is absolutely yes.
Wait,
You
so
on your own.
okay,
Come on.
what is the
Wow.
then what is the difference? That's what I'm wondering. What is the difference?
How-
'Cause- okay, so to clarify, I'm not talking about like a situation like Fanatiq who's saying, "Hey, I try to keep my body count low. I respect it when my wife does the same." That's way different than, well, I have a little bit. I want the girl's body count to be low, but I don't care what guys' body counts are. So what is that specific stance? That's what we're saying is misogynistic. So if you have an
And I'm saying
argument as
that
to why
it's
that's not,
not.
yeah, I'm asking you why.
I don't. So I don't think having. I don't think necessarily on these type of topics having a preference how people act, even if it's different per for the genders, is automatically misogyny at all.
I think that's
Damn, bro, they gotta get you on one of these shows. My guy.
No, it's
By
not.
definition.
It's absolutely not by definition misogyny. Come on, we have different standards for all sorts of things. Like if we have different like health expectations for different people because of different biological reasons or like different cultural reasons, then that's where the difference is in the
Sure.
business.
But you have to justify that. You have to justify that reason.
Justification.
We have different academic expectations for white people and black people. I mean, like there could be all kinds of reasons for
Well, no,
that.
but
No, it makes sense because there's different people, right? We should have different expectations. I mean, some people are just are more likely to achieve certain levels of academic excellence than others, right? So we should have different levels as well.
The difference, but the reason why that's not necessarily analogous is because there's different cultural expectations and like legitimately, but and not even cultural, right? Just like society-wide expectations. Men are taught to pursue women. Women are not typically, like the way society functions now, are not the ones that are pursuing women. So, I mean, are not pursuing men. So because of the fact that men are required to pursue women and women, so then that means for a man to be able to get that and for us to already have a difference in expectations. Men very often can be in it just for sex. And in those cases, like whereas a woman is looking for something that's more devoted and so on and so forth. And in those cases, if a man is able to trick a woman into sleeping with him, knowing that he's not actually committing, then because women have been significantly just historically more chaste and things like that, then that right there is where the difference.
Drawing conclusions.
I'm gonna need a why.
That's why.
No, let me finish because I gotta fight him.
I got you. That's why it's typically that a man is being seen as a champion because a man is getting this thing that is gate kept by the women. That's why. Whereas women, if a woman wants to go out and get laid, like today, right now, you could just hit up the vast majority of niggas, and the vast majority of niggas will do it. Like that's the way it is. Whereas when it comes for a man, I guarantee you,
it's me. I'm nigga.
I can guarantee you, outside of like the physically grotesque, there are like the ratio of incel men versus incel women is probably like 30-1.
Oh yeah,
wow.
It's wild.
All right,
it's very wild.
Oh my god, I have so many things to yell at you about, but like,
just say he's telling the truth and then move on.
No, he's not telling the fucking truth. No, fuck this. No. Look, to say that one,
we can say we don't want it to be this way, Prime, but that's
about
how it
like
is.
the women's behavior, right, and what women want out of a relationship, right? Like drawing assumptions, and then women, they want necessarily to have a man who will be their one and only, right? And that's the only thing they ever look for when they're going out, when they're interacting with others, right? Like, sure, great. But even then, right? Like what you do is you set up this situation where like women who fall outside of that, right? There's a problem with them. See, there's something wrong with that woman, right? Because she just wants to have sex, right? And I don't know, right? Like women should really be looking for the one, and on the road of looking for the one, right? She needs to make as few stops as possible because as long as she passes this threshold, and who the fuck knows where that is, right? Then we've got a problem. Then, do I want to be with her? And then it's like, oh well, she let all these people within her legs, right? And she must be stupid, right? There's something wrong with her brain, right? This woman is what was the thing? If she has had sex with so many individuals, right? And she's been naive and fooled, right? That means when I turn my back, right, she's gonna be sleeping with everyone, right? Like, or anyone who's
instant orgy.
Who's charismatic enough.
The moment you're gonna fade 180, can't see her, fucking everybody. Like,
everybody,
that's exactly
right?
What was voiced.
She couldn't tell, right? Like, a woman who interacted with asshole men, right? Asshole men who particularly used them in the situation they set up, right? Who particularly used her,
in your
right?
framework, they're just men that want to have sex. Why are they assholes, right? Just like you're saying the women should just want to have sex. Why are
even
they
if the women
assholes?
who want to have sex, they're whores at that point.
No. The point is that
deceive someone to have sex, that's fucked up. I don't know if you know that. But like, if you manipulate,
I fully agree.
Manipulation.
I agree.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
what we're talking about, Gambit. If someone's manipulating you to have sex, they're fucking with you.
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
that?
No, I
And
agree with
that's
that.
what we're talking
What-
about.
Okay, well, that's what I'm talking about. And then and to say
Yeah,
that,
that shit
well,
was exciting.
she is going to be she's going to have her legs spread for everyone, or like the conclusions about women's psychology here is unbelievable, from the guys that are coming out here. I just I'm sorry,
To
I would
be
expect
fair,
better.
to be
Wait, do
fair,
you think
I
somebody
wanna-
concluded that if a woman that has a high body count, if the man leaves them, they're having an orgy? Do you think somebody concluded that on this?
that
panel?
was a joke.
No,
I
no,
don't
no.
think if you are
Exactly what was
familiar with jokes.
concluded.
Now, what Fanatic had said earlier was he was worried that the person would go out and then they'd sleep with someone else. Obviously not an orgy,
They
but it
said
was
that
just
on
a
the
little
panel,
hyperbole
the
to make a
panel.
joke.
The eight,
Yeah, that
eight
was
at
a-
the table.
I don't-
And,
so I don't-
let's go to
Well, I don't want to be misogynistic. Let's let Hope in.
what's that? Yeah.
Right.
Wait, do you still think it wasn't misogynistic though?
No, not at all. But let's let Hope in.
We'll get to it. Hope.
I've been
not-
misogynist. Let the women speak.
I think that there's a large there's a plethora of assumptions made about what women want, and then there's also within that assumption of what women want, there's stereotypes of what women should want based off of what men think is desirable, right? Which I think is already a problem. There's this idea that women need to be chaste and need to have like this idea of virginity without being a virgin, but need to be a hoe, but not be a hoe, but need to be sexy, but not be too sexy, but need to be smart enough to understand, but not be so smart that she denies me. That doesn't make sense, right? There's a bunch of oxymorons as it pertains to what men want and how this conversation is strategized to make women look stupid and or slutty and or not, feminine enough and overtly masculine at the same time to get what you want out of the argument. And I think what's really interesting is that while we're having this conversation about praising the idea of men who have sex and do whatever based on a social standard, but then not wanting women to do those same things, while also praising heterosexuality, heteronormativity, and what men are supposed to be out here doing, right? If y'all are not fucking women 90 going north, then who are you fucking? So if women are not having casual sex in the same way that men are having sex in this casual way, and men want to be able to call women hoes and sluts and say that this is, unchaste of you and makes you not wifey material, then who exactly do you want to be fucking?
Yeah, it's
that
so
you can get your
homoerotic.
body count?
Yeah,
It is
Yeah.
it is
It's
very
very-
homoerotic. And I think that
Why
a
do people
lot of
always
men
make that
miss
joke?
It
A lot
is
of
though,
men-
because
Hold
it's
on,
usually
hold
you're
on,
gonna
hold on,
talk.
hold on,
you're
let
not-
her finish, let her finish.
Ridiculous.
Hope, please.
A lot of men miss that. I think that the thing about it is if we're going to have this conversation around body count and what makes someone desirable, we have to stop using the word, well, I have a preference for, right? Because what you don't do is you don't have a preference, you have a mandate, right? There's a difference between a preference. A preference is if I see Pop-Tarts on the table, right? I prefer the strawberry Pop-Tarts. But if someone eats all of them, I'm not going to do away with the hot fudge Pop-Tarts. I would just have preferred a strawberry one, right? My mandate is if there are no more strawberry Pop-Tarts, I am not going to eat that. And what I've seen is a lot of men, a lot of men will say, well, I have a preference for girls who just haven't been around the world, right? But what it is that you would rather not, right? You don't have a preference. You have a mandate that you have a girl who is chaste, who has not been touched, who has, been around just enough, but not so much that you're going to be embarrassed by her behavior. But you want to be able to come to her with all of your baggage and jump off and say, I've had sex with Keisha, Deisha, Yolanda, the gambit of all these women, and say that if you love me, you
Gambit.
will deal with that, right? You will deal with these women. You will deal with my past. You'll deal and you'll understand because you like me so much that you're willing to do that, right? But even in the video, that scenario was brought up and it was like, okay, so you love this girl. And the guy literally said, it doesn't matter if I've been with her for 5 years, I would have to think about that, right? And these are the things that women have to deal with as far as what it means to tell the truth and what it means to tell the white lie in order to be happy, because the consequences for that truth are completely different, right? The consequences for me saying that I am a woman who enjoys sex responsibly. And that's the thing too. Like the fact that women even have to give precursors, right? As a woman, I can't just say I'm a woman who enjoys sex, right? I have to say I am a woman who enjoys sex. I enjoy sex responsibly. I only have one partner at a time. Da 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 da. And even though I do it frequently, it is done this way. I get tested this often, only for a man to still turn around and call me a hoe, right? Only for those things to still be true about me. While a man can just come out and say, when I was 20, I did some shit. And it's just supposed to be the thing that's like,
That's
like it's like, oh, okay, no biggie, no problem. But when women turn around and say, well, for the sake of this conversation not going left and me not disliking you anymore, or me disliking you because of this conversation, I've only been with 3 guys. And then you find out that that wasn't true because I was trying to protect your feelings, your ego, and then also not put myself in a position where I feel like I have to justify my sexual history to somebody who I may or may not even be with. Now I am not only a hoe and a slut and a whore and all of these other things and unworthy of wifelyhood, but now I am a lying ass bitch who is no longer deserving of your conversation. And that's where the problem lies.
Oh my
So
God!
you just
Beautifully
Let me get some
said.
snaps in the
Yes.
chat.
So hold on,
Man,
so hold on,
let me get some snaps in the chat.
hold
We gotta have her
on,
back.
hold on. So
All
you
right.
just described how you would hope society to be, which a lot of us iterated in our openings as well. But that's just not reality at all, right? And like what you're saying is, hey, I am sex positive. Well, sex positive is a far different connotation, so I won't even say that. But you're more whatever. You get what I'm trying to say, and that's cool. A lot of us are that way, but we can't ignore the reality of how most people feel, right? So when we have this conversation talking about how most people feel, regardless of how detestable you think it is the actual social reality that we live in.
The thing is,
Um,
I think that it is the social reality. Really quick, I think that it is the social reality that we live in. I think the problem is that we're not having those conversations publicly. A lot more men are willing to date quote unquote hoes and are dating and married to quote unquote hoes than people would like to believe. And a lot more women are accepting, these guys that they claim that they would never touch with a 10-foot pole because every girl in the hood has had him, than we would like to believe. The problem is when we get in front of other people, right? The reality of the conversation in front of other people is that, oh, I can't do X, Y, and Z with somebody who has done blah, 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 blah. Like, let's be very real. That conversation was filled with people who were being triggered because they have done everything that they said that they would not do. And now they feel the need to justify it socially so that in the eyes of other people, they can uphold this idea and this image that they think is necessary, right? A lot of the women on panel, even the young lady in the red skirt, who I guess people kind of sort of knew that she wasn't out there like that, right? She was defending the argument of women being able to be free while also trying to hold on to this idea that she was chased, right? She was defending it, but she was holding on to the idea, which leads me to believe that somewhere down the line, bitch, you fucked a couple of niggas one weekend and we just don't know about it, right? And
She know about it.
and
She know about
and,
it.
and the same thing with like a lot of the men, where it was like we were seeing dude with the braids and dude with the locks, and they were defending these things and saying like, oh, I wouldn't, da 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 da. But I can look at the both of them and tell that these are coming from places of experience, which means the both of you have at least tried, right? There has been one woman that has put you all in a position that has made you rethink your position. And while you've done those things privately, I think that that is the truth. I think the world that we would like to live in exists very much so privately. It just does not exist in open conversation. And that is what we have to change as a people if we want to be able to maneuver honest spaces. But people don't like honesty. People like the charade that they're able to hold up when other folks walk into the room and see them and go, that's the guy that would never, that's the girl that has never. And so they are respectable and able to be respected because of.
Chris.
Yeah, they was lying.
Everything you said was absolutely perfect. Reminds me of this movie I watched in high school that completely changed my perspective. It's called Chasing Amy. In this movie, a guy was like found this perfect girl, right? They had the perfect relationship. Everything's going great. Thinking about marrying this girl. Then all of a sudden he hears a story about this girl being in a threesome with 2 guys that he didn't like, right? He went
Went to
off.
Jordan Southern?
No, yeah, this is Ben Affleck. So like
I'm joking.
he ended that relationship, right, in a horrible way, right? He went off, like he was super mad about it, and he called her all types of names, right? This ended that relationship between him and that girl. And afterwards, he spent the whole movie like being depressed about it because he ended this thing with someone who was perfect for him because of this conception he had, this idea he had of like a girl that would do that type of thing, right? Even though him as a guy and like other guys that he knows are doing like all that sort of thing and like worse all the time, right? Like, why do we have this expectation on women like that we don't have on ourselves?
Yeah,
Well,
so
hold
this
on.
is
But
this
there's
is
very
where
different
it's
Like,
I
hold on,
can explain that. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah.
like that made me think to myself, like I've ruined a couple of relationships doing that, right? Like being assuming like what my partner was into, or like how they would behave around other like dudes and things like that, or I would assume like the type of relationships you'd have with them when I hear stories about what they did or whatnot, right? And like what as I'm older now, I realize like that I don't give a shit. Like I just like I recently dated a girl who had tons and tons of relationships, and like everything she told me about it, it bounced off me like it was nothing. I just like it didn't matter to me, right? I'm like cared less to hear about it because it was just like, right, like I don't really care. Like that doesn't like hurt my ego like I thought it would, like or like I don't feel certain types of way about guys, like or my insecurity isn't hurt because of that. Now I know if I find a girl that I really like, I'm really into it, I think she's really interesting, I automatically assume she's done things in her life, right? That she's explored things like I would have, right? And like I'm not gonna shame her for that, and I probably like her more for that. I don't know. I get
Okay,
this
that
isn't
But so there's a very big difference, right? Because there's one thing where I think a lot of people have like this sort of mentality that revolves around the idea of like having fun now, but not having to deal with those consequences later, or not even not having to deal with those consequences, but recognizing like when it comes to monogamy, like they want to be like a totally different person, right? Like or maybe like I do it where it's like I can be really lazy and messy, but I guess the idea is like in a long-term committed relationship, I have to be my higher self, right? Which means that means my hygiene has to be even better. My room has to be, you know what I'm saying? Like the car I drive, the clothes I wear, everything I like. For me, it's like if I'm starting to represent another person, and I want whatever. So we appeal to larger or to greater ideals when we're in a relationship. And I think in some of these situations, these dudes are looking at it like, yo, I'm being debaucherous with a whole bunch of people that I don't particularly expect, like that I have no stake in and I don't put any stock into. But when I am going to actually be building and I want specific family values, those family values are going to need to come from a person that shares some of the same values and can instill those same values in my children. And I think so that's where this difference in, whatever
Yeah,
happens.
and to add on a little bit, because like everything that Hope said sounded amazing, but it's so laughable because this always gets like the conversation is always represented as men are trying to oppress women, when the reality is most women hold these thoughts too. So it's laughable when people say, "Oh, everybody's so sex positive and all women just want to have sex as much as they can," when that's just not reality. There are a plethora of women who
internal
aren't
misogyny is a
as
thing.
Why
no.
might they have those views?
It's not misogyny.
Yeah.
Not
No
misogyny.
one,
It's laughable to call it misogyny. But the reality is that women uphold these traditions or whatever we want to call it, just like men do. So when we try to present this conversation as
'Cause we live in
men
a
are trying to
patriarchy.
hold women back, there are women that'll tell you the same thing. And like I said in my opening, I don't necessarily agree with some of these ideals, but acting like there isn't like coordinated efforts amongst both genders or sexes to uphold this and they find value in it is laughable.
Oh man,
Like it's
yeah,
utterly
to
laughable.
be fair,
hold on.
to be fair,
Let's
it is a
let
very
Jay. Hold on. Let Jay in first.
no one is saying that this is bad. Like no one's
We're
saying
talking
that like
misogyny. Misogyny is not bad.
yes,
worth it.
misogyny is bad, but to have this weight, this disproportionate weight on women who have more sex than their let's say male partner for this conversation is a double standard. No, I'm sure they're women. Now I'm sure they're women who agree
You're saying
that
all standards must be applied equally to both genders. And if there's any sort of disparity,
it shouldn't
that's
matter. I'm
misogyny.
saying it shouldn't matter.
No, you're saying that it shouldn't matter, but I'm asking you to define why you think this specific thing is misogyny. If you buy into the idea that we can have different expectations on that apply differently to genders, then why can you say just because there's a disparity and now people
Is
feel about body
systemic.
count is
It's
absolutely
it's
misogyny?
it's systemic. It's the way you'd view like systemic racism. We live in a patriarchy, and so even if you like an individual could feel like this is internalized, they want it, etc., it's brought on by the structures that we've created. Like people are born into a system in which they think that this is okay, but you can see how there is some form of contempt for women when they have this unequal treatment,
You're
and they
using
have to go through that.
you're justifying this with your opinion, right? We can agree that these
Yeah, that's
things are
called
culturally and
conversation.
no. This is you're not answering the question though. which like we can agree that these things are culturally influenced, but the question that I'm asking is just because there's a disparity in how we want to apply body count, why does that automatically mean it's misogyny?
Because
When
Because-
we can
because-
when, hold on, wait,
because
wait,
of the
wait,
reason
wait,
why.
wait. When we can recognize that we do have different standards on other things that we would apply to genders different.
Because
Can I
like,
give
have to say
a
that
really easy analogy? Like literally less than 10 seconds, right? Like we have two different cars, right? We have like an electric vehicle and we have like your standard non-electric vehicle, right? Like now you can say it's a double standard because the electric vehicle doesn't have to get the smog check, right? Like we don't have to do emissions tests on those cars. Well, yes, the thing no, they don't, because not in the state of California, because when you have different types of cars, like different things apply to different things. And just because there's a difference between two things doesn't make it a double standard. It's only a double standard in which all the factors are the same, and then you're saying what it applies to one but doesn't apply to another.
Women
But
have
there are clearly
vaginas.
different factors.
Women have
Clearly there are
vaginas,
different
so
factors
it's
because of different
okay.
society.
Amazing.
No,
No,
that's
no,
not.
no, no,
if that's what you
hold
took
on,
from
holy
that,
shit.
bro.
Like
I'll leave you with it.
so like like you're like when we had these double standards. No, I guess you could have different standards for different categories. We can understand these are harmful double standards. Like we can have double standards for different within different genres, right? Within different areas of life, right? We can have those, right? But some are harmful. This is a harmful double standard, right?
It's not. Number one, it's not a double standard.
This damages women, right? Like you're saying that, well, women uphold this too. Well, yeah, of course they do. Fucking of course they do. Like they gotta protect themselves, right? Like these women, like growing up, hearing these messages. Of course, why don't you tell your daughter to send across the same messages to your daughter? Like, hey, like you have to limit the number of people you are with, or you are less than, right? Less than, right? And I this is how I have survived within this world, so I'm gonna impart that on you, right? And maybe I'll shame you if I even suspect that you've gone outside of that. You've broken that rule, right? That you've breached a number that I think is too much, right? Whatever that number is in my own head, and the consequences, as very helpfully laid out, are fucking dire for them. Dire to the point where, like, now a lot of us are just talking about people being like, losing relationship opportunities, right? But they can also be fucking murdered. A guy learns something about his woman that he doesn't like, and he fucking kills her for it. Right,
Yeah,
that's where it ultimately goes.
Some extreme
What
things.
I don't.
Laughable.
I did
But
that.
I don't think we always have to jump to that.
I've never heard anything like that in my life.
Laughable.
That's
Back it up.
women
Back
because of the
it up.
uncontrollable ways that men are taught to think about women and their sexuality is not laughable. The ways in which that men treat
No,
women.
what I
based
call
off of how they
laughable
feel.
is the idea that there's some great sum of men who kill partners that they find out have a high body count.
Because
Yeah, I
they're
don't think that has to be.
There
I don't think we have
are.
to take the conversation to that
Do
place.
you-
Wait, wait.
so you think that
there are?
I'm sorry.
Why
you
is
are
it-
not
The world
aware
is
of
larger
this?
than America.
Prime. I'm gonna ask you the question. I'm gonna ask you the question that I asked you when you make like really, really crazy statements that just sound good. Would you say none, few, some, many, or all?
It
You would
doesn't
probably
have to
say
be.
few.
Hold on, don't give me that. It doesn't have to.
No.
be a
Can you
lot.
answer the question? I want to understand how you conceptualize this. Do you think few men do this?
Few,
Do you
yes.
think some?
Few,
Do you think all?
yes.
Most?
And I said some
Okay,
people, or
so-
few people, right? Yes, a few men that murder their women, right? Yes, murder. Sorry, their women.
Not even their women.
Yeah, murder. Yeah, like there is an epidemic of femicide within this country, but even in worse in other countries, like for instance in Mexico, right? There's an epidemic. They have women protesting in the streets because so many of them are being murdered, right? They're being murdered for all kinds of fucking reasons, right? For women rejecting men and not coddling their feelings enough, right? Like. For that much, but then you bring on, oh, okay, my lady is a whore, right? Quote unquote, she is a whore now, right? My honor has been damaged, and what do? We do honor killings. They happen on the other side of the planet. They happen on this side of the planet. They happen in this fucking country.
It was part of why we were justifying staying in Afghanistan.
Yeah, it's like unbelievable. This is exactly that. Exactly that. So to pretend like, oh, this is some wild thing,
Like,
right? And
this is
Do
This
we
is all
have to, can I,
awful, and I
can I
think
say
this
something?
doesn't get to Fanatic's point. I think this is kind of like saying like this is really shitty though, but like his question is, and so is Gambit's. The question is, even though there is this difference in expectation, why do we expect it to not be there? Because what we are saying is, hey, I think body counts, if you want a low body count, it should be the same for both genders. Or if you don't care, it should be the same for both genders. That's what we're saying. Now, what they're saying is, okay, if I prefer a low body count for women and a high body count for men, is it possible that the social standards that they typically would be going towards, the fact that they're not going towards that shows something about their character? That's what they're suggesting. What you're saying does not
Yes.
counter that argument. I don't agree.
I answered it.
I just readjusted to that argument.
It's like,
think,
yes, they're-
but hold on a second. I was about to say before we, because I want to take it way further back from this. I don't think we had to go to this extreme to like prove that it's misogyny. The reason, yes, there's going to be difference in how we measure things in categories, but the difference is that like we have to prove those things via being justified. What is the justification for it? And if we say what is the justification for why we have different standards on men and women's body count, the conclusion we come to is because we attach a woman's value to the limited number of sex partners she has.
No, that's not it at all.
No.
That's literally
You're literally begging,
consequences of sex
Bam.
aren't
You're
the
literally
same.
begging the
This
question
is
right now.
not begging the question.
No,
It is
it's not.
absolutely what you're doing. Is you're saying the reason we're saying it's misogyny, and we're saying it's misogyny because we place value, and we're saying why are we placing value, right? Why are we placing this value? Where's the difference at? And if unless you can say that the reason why we're placing the value is because of misogyny, then it's circular as freak, right? It's misogynistic because we place the value.
It's not
We place the
circular.
value
I'm
because
using
it's
I'm using a
misogynistic.
different. I'm using value differently. Maybe I'll change the word if that confused you. Well, what I'm saying is we say that women who have sex, women who allow other people to enter their body, are now worse women. They degrade themselves. These women don't respect themselves, and we can't justify that's misogyny because we can't justify any of these things. These
Yes,
are just
we can.
arbitrary positions we place on women.
Sure. Here's the justification. Really, really simple and really succinctly. It's like okay. If my job is to go and try to try to buy something. If my job is to try to go and acquire something, right? And I'm negotiating, and it's like a barter system. If I'm getting the better end of the deal on a regular basis, right? Then if I'm able to buy at whatever and get a better end of the deal, then that means now that the other person who let me take advantage of them is gullible, right? Like that's what it means.
Sure, but I'm
That's
saying,
what the difference is.
but I'm saying if you just hold that standard to women and not to men, like that would be one thing if that was true across the board. But the reason it's misogyny is because we hold this standard for women that we don't apply to men.
Okay, so let me ask you this: do we hold the same exact standard to people on who should be pursuant of relationships? Do we hold the same standard?
That's
Who's
also
supposed- Wait,
that's
and
also
who's
part of
supposed to-
misogyny.
who's
That
supposed
is
to be the
also
aggressor?
misogynistic and
Who's supposed to
patriarchal.
be-
We can have this
Wait.
argument anymore.
It's
You said what
both
happened?
patriarchal
We're
and
literally
misogynist.
seeing women propose to men. I don't think that we can have that argument anymore. And
Oh,
an
no,
age
no,
where
no,
we're
man.
seeing-
Most women
I'm sorry.
reject
That's
that.
really rare. I don't know.
Wait,
I'm
Hope,
hyper
Hope,
here.
Hope,
I'm hyper
hold on,
right
wait,
now.
What did she ask? I didn't even
Hope,
hear what
if
she
you
asked.
called, wait, Hope, if you called 100 women in your phone, I'm willing to bet I don't know you at all, so I don't even know the circles you deal with, right? But I guarantee you, about 90 of them would say, I would never propose to a man. I don't even know you. I don't even know you at all,
Yes,
but I'm
that's
sure that that's
my
the case.
The sad part about it is that that's an assumption that's not true based off of the way that I see myself and the way that I see the people that hang around me. A lot of the women in my phone, one, make more than their husbands, and so they recognize that they're
That's
probably
nothing
going
to do with proposing.
Subscribe to the channel.
like I said, a lot of the women make more, and because of this, right, there's an expectation of them from their mates that they're probably going to be the person that makes that move because financially, usually, marriage and all of that shit is seen by the person who makes the most money in those situations. So a lot of the people that I hang around with are going to propose and have proposed. That's like that's
Please, Hope. All you're saying.
So
No.
even if that's true, then
You're
you
just
can
ignoring
put
the fact. You're making the statement that like a lot of times it's the person who makes the most money because a lot of times the person who makes the most money in the vast majority of cases, still to this day, is men, and that's just always been the expectation that we had for men.
When we're looking at the job market right now, we're looking at the fact that women make up for like especially like within the.
So you think in most relationships the female makes more today?
Yeah, if we look it up on average right now in 2021, hold on. If we look at the average income right now in 2021 of the average female and versus the average income of the average male right now, then you know that the men earn more, right? Furthermore, if we look in specific relationships, Like the vast majority of men out earn their wives still today in
Wait.
2021. Like this is
Fanatic,
just true across the
forgot
That
board.
number's
gender pay
closer
gap.
in the black
Wait, you
community,
forgot the
but there
gender
is
pay
a
gap
gap.
doesn't exist, Fanatic. There aren't movements because women want to be paid more. They're already paid more than men. You forgot
Yeah,
about that.
Hope, I'm sorry, that's just not
That's
the
not
case. Like that, in the vast majority of cases, men are out earning women still, and I get it. So then, if you want to see this association, this correlation between like who's expected to propose, it's not because it's the person who earns the most money. It's because men. It's like a societal thing that men are supposed to be the ones that advance, and some of this can be rooted in the fact that before men used to literally buy their wives, right? So culturally, men had to be the ones that went out and pursue it, and now maybe that's why we've continued to maintain that. I don't know what the exact reasoning is, but what I can say is societally right now, it's the man who typically pursues the wife, and because of that, and it's normally the man who is typically, I'm saying typically, pursuing the sexual encounters, right? Like even in cases in which women don't want to, in which women are monogamous and are not interested in sexual relationships outside of like long-term commitment, you'll find men that will literally dupe women, and I think these dudes are disgusting predators who will manipulate women into pretending that they want to be with them long term, so that they can get their sexual gratification. Because men hit their sexual peak at much earlier ages. Like our sex drives are significantly higher in high school and in young adulthood. Women get to their sexual peak in their 30s. So that means in this entire time leading up till then, men are raging bulls trying their most to get as many nuts off as freaking possible, whereas women are a lot more reserved. This is biologically true. So then because of that, if men, I'm sorry, if you disagree with any of that, please just take it up with the
I
biology.
disagree immediately.
And so then because of that, we
need to no. We can't go to the conclusion if we don't agree on the facts. We can't go to the conclusion.
I'm sorry. I'm going to make the conclusion, and then afterwards you can argue with yourself amongst the facts because these are factually accurate. So then, because of that, we know that what we do typically within society is men are pursuing more sexual relationships than women are, like typically, and so as a result of that, we have different expectations for how it's going to be done. If a man's able to do that, we consider him a champion because men, as I said earlier, are less likely to be men have to actually work at trying to get sex, whereas women, outside of grotesque creatures, like most of the time they can get laid when they want to. Did anyone disagree with that when I said that earlier?
Okay.
No, I didn't think so.
You didn't have to say it like that.
Hey,
That
real
last
quick,
part is
so
kind of true, but you didn't have to say it like
Let's
that.
go to
Say it
Django. We've
like
been trying to
that.
get in, and then Wiggle.
So, even though I think that a lot of what we've gone down isn't like against Fanatic's argument in a good enough way, I just want to bring up women's peak of sexuality is 30. Where are you getting that from? Because as far as I know, it's 18 to 26, maybe. Because that's as far as I
No,
understand.
I thought
I
it
heard
was
women's
even
sexuality
older.
peak goes up.
He's talking about physical peak, I think, or something.
No.
Like,
This
He's
is
talking about when they
talking
can have
considering,
more
like,
sex
I'm just
drive.
gonna
no,
Google
I'm talking
phrase.
about
The perspective
Django.
of men.
Django is talking about physical peak. and
Like
I
the
think-
libido.
But
Yeah,
he's
No,
talking
libido
about-
goes up. I was about to say when they can have
Libido,
babies.
I thought libido was even later than 30s, but I could be wrong about
Yo,
that.
you guys are going off the metric that men make for the peak
Yeah.
sexuality of women. What
I
the
don't know.
fuck?
But okay. Well, then I guess while we Wiggle, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I thought I like addressed this. It would be like we live in a patriarchal society, so like all this stuff is systemic. It's built in our institutions. The way that we think about these things, it formulates the way that we build the structures that we have, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then you have like an individual like Hope that's telling you like an example of like, well, the reason why this happens is because the wealthier person in the relationship covers all of this. And then it seems to be an agreement where you guys are like, well, yeah, well, that traditionally that's been the case because men have had most of the money and men are having this. And it's like, yeah. And then she went a step deeper and was like, why? And then it's giving you the systemic reason. And you can see that this has changed over time because women have more money in society. So that's like the reason. And you have to look at this, and if you want to change us from some form of patriarchy, you'd have to look at all of these structures and be like, well, I mean, what is the systemic reason for this? And I have to change that versus being like, this is the tradition, this is the way it should be. Because like, it's about whether you want progress or do you want things to remain the same? And if you see that progress, you have to see why. And if it's because women are making more money, then like that's good. If there's more equity in this way, there's good. And that doesn't mean that there's equivalent. I know like Gambit, you're very much of the idea of like people get to choose, and I agree with you. If there isn't full equity at the end because people choose that way, yes, I agree that you shouldn't have everyone in our society shouldn't have the same level of wealth. All right, I agree with that. That's a ridiculous thing to think. But then you have to look at the structures and be like, have our decisions been made without coercion? Have we lived in a system where we haven't been coerced upon from the moment we're born to the point we're now? We want people to make free choices.
Of social pressure.
You want free choices, man. It's the idea of living in a society where
that
we're making
doesn't
your choices,
exist.
and
Wait,
we should strive to get that.
You think that we can construct a society where there's no social pressure on individuals?
Yes,
I
I'm
don't
an
think that.
American. that's the American dream.
No,
That's
free
what we've
from
been
social
doing
pressure is
every
not the
single
same
year.
as equality of opportunity. Those aren't the
There was
same
a time.
things.
There was a time, like when we were both growing up, that like if you smoked weed, you're taboo. Like you did everything in the book, and for you, it was probably worse because you're a little bit older than I. Like now that's changed. Why? Because people looked at this, said this is a culture war that we can win. We should think differently, and that's the progress. Like we shouldn't look at tradition and immediately say this
That's
is the
how it
reason
is.
why it exists. This is how it should
Wait,
be. We should look
I
at
don't
things
do
and
that.
justify them.
I don't do that.
That's
I do
what you're doing
justify.
now.
No. So specifically, if we want to talk about weed smoking, I specifically think it's stupid. Most of the people that I know that smoke weed engage in weed in such a way that it inhibits them from being more productive members of society. So I don't smoke weed. I think smoking weed is silly, but I understand that people have the choice. But that doesn't mean that those choices don't, on average, have consequences. And when I look at the people who smoke weed all day, every day, guess what? Most of them have terrible lives. That's why I think this
What's
is
the
a horrible
consequence of a
quality to
woman
have.
proposing
Wait,
to
is that the
man
weed
or
smoke?
having more money in the relationship? What are the
You said what?
consequences? What are the consequences of a woman being the bread earner in her family
I
or
never
having
said there
more?
was a negative consequence to that.
So then
Outside
we
of
have to
some
ask
men with
ourselves,
small
why
asses.
is that not happening? And then instead of saying it's because
No,
they
it's not
choose
happening because a
to,
lot of women also don't want it to happen.
and then you have to understand,
Women don't
like,
want money.
Wait.
are they
You
making those
listen,
choices
nah.
in a
You
free
asked-
environment
you
or
asked
with the
the question I wanna
coercion of
answer.
from
A
the
lot of
beginning they
women-
grow up to the point
No,
that
listen.
to a point a woman dies, her life has these
Defined by men.
constraints that are put on them because they live in a patriarchy. The same way men deal with certain constraints that are put on their lives as well, where you have the feeling that you have to achieve, you have the feeling that you can't disappoint, you have the feeling that you have to
Wiggle,
earn more than your
Wiggle,
father.
You're
Women
saying
have a
something over and
series
over. I'm
of
trying to respond.
problems
You're just regurgitating, like you're just throwing up and
because
eating
I
and
feel
throwing
I
it
need
back up.
to. The reason I
Okay,
regurgitate is
so-
because when I listen to
So
you,
instead
all I
of
hear is throw up.
regurgitating, how about
So I
allow me
copy
to
what I look
respond?
at.
So
He
how
doesn't want an
about
actual
allow me to
conversation. He
respond?
just wants to talk.
Yeah, if you want to just talk to yourself,
I've talked
like, you
less
can,
than
there's
most people
no,
on this
Prime
panel
has
so far.
Prime has a waiting room that you can jump in to talk to yourself. But if you want to talk to us, allow us to respond, right?
Oh, that
So
sounded kinda
the thing
weird.
is,
I had my
if you
hand
go to-
raised
wait,
the
wait,
majority of
wait,
this
wait.
panel, my friend.
You talked. We let you.
Okay, just go. Just go.
We don't need to keep talking about talking. Just talk,
Okay,
dude.
yeah. So listen, so Wiggle. So the thing is, go to most women that have kids and say, "Do you want?" The question that
Oh,
Kevin
you have to
Samuels
have
asked
kids now.
is, no.
Kevin
Wait.
Samuel,
Wait,
Lord. Let him finish the
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, if you ask most women, do you want to work to pay significant bills after you have kids? So having kids doesn't matter. It's the aspirations once you do have kids. So you don't have to have kids to answer that question. Most women say no. Most women, not all.
Most women with
say no.
kids.
So wait. So, no. You're not listening. If you ask women, when you have kids, do you aspire to have to work to pay significant bills? The answer to that question is no. And then once you understand that, then you look at all of these structures on top of it, and you can start to understand why things are the way they are. If you reject, if you say, well, all of those women are wrong, then you can say that. That's cool, but that's how most of those women are, and so they're gonna reinforce behavior that gives them that freedom that they
you link
want. But
anything in
now,
the back up,
when
please?
you're not on the choice of the freedom, you say the freedom is bad, and that's what's weird. That's really
Can
weird.
you link something to back that up? And then you're
Yeah,
saying when
so-
as if they have to have women. Women have to have babies too, which is kind of
No,
weird.
that's not the way.
said
That's not the way
women have to have babies.
English
Listen to
works.
what
No,
I said.
that's not the way
You-
English
you-
works.
We look at it.
What do you mean?
When this occurs, then this. That doesn't mean this only occurs.
Yes, I know.
That's not
Yeah,
how English
obviously.
works.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So
Sure.
I think it's very important is you're kind of reverse engineering and saying like, hey, since women are like this, obviously all the structures make sense because women want this. Now the
I didn't
problem,
say all the structures make sense. I'm saying
maybe
some
not
of them
every
do.
single.
Some
right,
of them
but
is this one.
Yes, sure. The problem is if you work backwards like that, you can get incorrect solutions. When we look at, for example, black communities and the fact that they do more crime, we wouldn't say, "Oh, that's why they're more in jail." No.
Oh, you know what we can ask black, do you want to commit more crime? We can ask people that question, right? And then we can get an answer. And from that, we can say there's a difference in what's happening and what people aspire to do. The difference is in what I laid out, women actually aspire to do it.
That's mad funny, Gavin, because I'm sure if you asked the husband, if you asked somebody that had the kid as well, like they would say yes too. I don't want to work either, motherfucker.
Definitely.
They're gonna be like, I don't want to work either if I have a kid. If you ask, yes,
You're saying if you ask men that?
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
sure they'd want their kid. They'd want the government
I
to
don't
help
think that's
both.
true.
Come on,
No,
man.
I
There's
don't
so
think
many,
that's
dude. There's so many examples
This
that
is-
men are not willing to go. Like men are significantly less likely to show up to like child functions and like child recitals and things like that. Men focus primarily on work, which has a lot to do with why
'Cause they
men
have
don't
to.
earn them. Well, sure,
They have to earn them.
you're right.
We live in
And
a
you know what?
patriarchal
You know what you call that? I guess
But
you
you
guys
didn't
would want
have
to call
to
that
do
a
that.
double. You guys would want to call that a double standard, right? So if we were to sit here and look at it, and you were to start looking at the fact that men are required to have certain men are
but why
required
do they
in the-
have
in the
to?
back.
Men are less valued if they don't have
Nobody
a
can
job.
Men. I'm gonna finish my sentence. Men. I'm gonna finish.
Men.
Men. Y'all know I will go all dang day. Men.
Stop.
Don't do this. This is not- it's not.
Men. Let's see who got some more stamina, nigga.
I can't
Men
stop it,
are
stop.
required. Men are required to have significantly more economic status before they are able to be in specific relationships, which is why men out earn women. There are plenty of cases in which women want to be hypergamous. So that means that if a man is not earning certain things, then it'll be looked at as unapproachable. This happens more often than not. Where if a woman finds out that a man doesn't have a job, then that means he's automatically off the dating pool. We wouldn't call that a double standard because we recognize that there is a societal expectation that men will be the breadwinners in most cases, right?
That's the standard that's fucked up.
That's
because
fu-
the way
it's
we
just-
sl-
Yeah, it's a standard that's
This is-
enforced.
Chris and Jamal,
No, it's
you want to
it's something that's biologically derived.
Biological?
Chris,
Wait,
Chris,
okay.
Chris,
Regardless of biological,
I'm sorry.
regardless
You're
of
acting
biological,
shocked by.
regardless
You
of
guys are acting
biological.
shocked
Wait,
by
wait,
this.
wait,
I will break
wait,
it.
wait, wait, wait.
I will break it
regardless
down.
of
I will
biological.
break it down.
No, wait,
for
hold
you.
on. Let me get my word. You
Chris
just
didn't
went off.
think
No,
it was
hold on.
okay,
Hold on.
Go ahead.
Regardless of biological, we live in an age now where the biological reason for why men may have made more money in the past is no longer relative.
That's not
What-
true.
What are you talking about?
Okay, that's why I wanted to explain it so you could hear me. So it's really simple. If we start looking at things like maternity leave, some of those things are required. When a newborn baby, sometimes a pregnancy can be incredibly debilitating. My sister, when she was pregnant, she had to be on bed rest by her 5th month of pregnancy, or she was going to lose the baby. That was 4 months off of a job. 4 months. And guess what? It's not like she had the baby and then the very next day went back to work. She still needed a month of recovery afterward. It was a very complicated pregnancy and a complicated delivery. That's 5 months. Sometimes it's longer. Some states give up to 6 months of maternity leave. So biologically, that's already a thing. Furthermore, a man is not nursing his kid. A man ain't squirting milk out his titties. So absolutely, somebody's going to have to feed the freaking kid. And some people, we obviously recognize that breastfed babies do have nutritional advantages. So biologically, the woman's not going to be able to work the whole time. I guess she can pump all day and hope that works out. But clearly, there are disadvantages to even that. And sometimes you can get wasted milk and so on and so forth and all those other problems. So that's why it's biologically something that was developed. Like, let's not act like this is only happening just because niggas hate women. There were reasons for that.
Wait, but women can't go
And
back
there's
to work
women
after
hate
all
men
of
now.
those. After they recover, they can't go back to work.
You got it.
No,
we
after
gotta
they
say
obviously, that's 6 months off the job.
Chris.
6 months off of a job.
Chris,
Think about if you're
okay,
trying to
no,
develop.
No. Sorry, we gotta move. Chris, and then Hope.
We keep jumping around to so many different wild points. Look, if like because of the way I was raised, right? I was raised to like think these like things, right? To have these values.
Great.
And I get to an
That's
adult
great parents.
and I realize and I realized these values like mean nothing to me, right? They only mean anything because that's like how society is structured. And I realized this is a fucked up way for society to be structured because it does not work for me and a lot of other people. Now, the reason why like a lot of people's parents or dads weren't around is because they had to work, not because it's because we're in a capitalistic society, right? If they didn't work, they didn't eat, right? So you can't go to
But
that
Chris,
baseball
who's
game you
going to
want to go
generate the
to, right?
GDP to give
Hold up.
everybody no jobs? What's are you talking about a post-automation society? Until
No,
all jobs
we're
are
talking
automated,
about
who's going to put in the labor
Gambit.
such that
You keep
society is
doing this.
upkept and people have these freedoms? How does everyone not have a job? What society can support that? Go ahead.
No, Gambit, because you keep doing this.
Meditate
Like you brought
America.
up, like we were talking about. You were talking about reasons for people for doing things, right? And you gave this example of like women giving this answer to this question, whereas like like
That
if
question is
given an
fundamental.
opportunity, given an opportunity, any smart person would say the same. You tell me after I have kids, I don't have to
No,
work
you wouldn't.
like
Well,
a
most men
9 to
wouldn't.
5.
You might.
Like I wouldn't have
Most
to
men
work
wouldn't.
a 9 to 5 to be able to live a comfortable life and be able to raise my kid. Like, are you kidding me? Of course I'd take that like option, right? That makes no sense.
Okay,
And
you
like
might have
two,
a minority opinion on
But
that.
I don't
it-
actually
it-
something to give like some ground to Gambit. Like there is some reality, and it is like I said, it's 100% because of the way that we people are raised. Like what people aren't just doing this. Everyone's not just doing this from like a functional perspective. Like there is like even if you look at like really high earning women who make 150,000, 200,000 plus, like they still like see out partners who make more than them, even though they could probably afford a full time nanny and afford to take the time off and like take care of themselves. Like they still look for people who make more than them. So it seems to be
They
like,
hate men, apparently.
well, no, I
That's what's
don't,
going
it's
on.
no,
the
but
They
image.
hate men.
It's the
That's
image.
just
Like they're trying to
Let's go.
create this
What
thing
if
that
they?
we set in society, right?
but I'm saying
Because
like if
Oh,
they,
so
I'm saying
hurry
like
up,
in
Bam, and I want to go to Hope. Hurry up.
Okay, I'm saying in a larger society that like in a society that unpacks these things, we will understand that there's only going to be so many six-figure jobs. And the women who do happen to like look out through hard work or whatever, like I'm not minimizing their achievement, like achieve these things, it should make more sense that those women should go to men who, like should be more accepting of men who make less, the same way men in those positions generally are more accepting of women who make less.
Okay, Hope and then Django.
No, that double standard is okay. That's
That
not
is-
misogyn. That's not misandry.
That's misandry.
It is.
That is
That's not misandrous. That's just
That
an
is-
okay double standard because we have some double standards that are okay, and then other
Oh,
times we
boy.
That's
choose.
not
Sometimes
okay.
that disparity isn't okay.
What?
Oh
I
boy.
think this goes back to exactly what Chris is talking about, right? Like we have to be mindful of the things that we have been taught socially to accept as the truth based off of what everybody else needed to do back in a time where that was expected for survival and what we now know to be better, right? It's literally a case of when you know better, you do better kind of sort of deal. And as a society, if we start to preach those things that we know to be better for us now and to serve us better, we would be better off. The problem is a lot of us are hell-bent on the idea of sticking to these roles because we don't like the idea of having to think for ourselves and be the oddball out, right? It's a lot easier to say as a man, like, oh, I would do X, Y, and Z because this is what I've been doing for forever, right? Like, and it's a lot easier as a woman to say, I'm going to keep my legs closed because rather than to be the person that steps out and says, no, absolutely not. Because then what happens is you have to also be the person that is willing to defend that point. And you shouldn't have to be because nobody should have to defend their ideals of why they want to exist in the world or whether they want to exist unless you're raping kids, because then I need you to explain that and get your ass beat, but whatever. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, as human beings, we should not have to be debating whether or not my body count, the way that I enjoy sex or whatever is going to affect the way in which I'm going to be seen as a valuable human being to someone else, right? I am not a rapist. I am not someone who is going around committing fraud and debauchery and killing folks, right? I am a person who enjoys something that we all, majority of us, right, enjoy, which is sex. And so why should I be looked at as somebody who is less valuable? One, because of the way that my gender shows up in the world. And two, because I enjoy it a lot. I think that these things are things that, like Chris has been trying to say, if we could have our way, if we could go back, now that we know better and we understand that some of this shit is just straight up bullshit, some of this shit is manufactured by people who had little ass dicks and had little dick energy, right? We would go back and be like, fuck all of these stereotypes and these these norms, and we would have relationships that are a lot more healthy because people will be able to do the things that serves them and not the people on the outside looking in that say you are less of a man if your wife does this, or you are too masculine of a woman if you do this, or you're emasculating your husband if you do that, or you're feminizing yourself if you allow your wife to do X, Y, and Z, and you just exist in a relationship that works for you in the way that it works for you. There are a lot of men that would simply be like, oh, you want to work in this particular relationship and allow me to stay home because I prefer to clean and I'm OCD and all this extra bullshit? Perfect. Let's switch this shit up and it'll work better. But the problem is there are so many men that are hell-bent on this idea of what that's going to look like to the homeboys or what it'll look like to dad and uncle them when they come over for the, the
Don't
Thanksgiving.
speak about the women that's hell-bent on that idea. You think they're
The
all
problem-
so all hypergamous? So wait, all
Here
hypergamous
we
women are
go.
terrible
But
people
see,
and
this is the
misandrous,
problem,
right?
though. When
Wait,
women
wait.
speak about these things, then men do the same thing where it's like, but what about what y'all do? My thing is, the thing
Because
about
it's
it
the
is you
equivalent.
get to control your narrative the same way that women are doing the slut walks and all of these things. You have more women that are dressing more provocatively and saying, fuck the idea of that. Instead of running away from you all and covering up and getting guns and pepper spray, I'm going to wear what I want to wear. I'm going to take these defense classes. And if you try me, I'm busting your ass, right? Men can do the same exact thing.
Okay, so
Stop
can I ask
allowing
you a
women to police the way that you show up as a man and redefine masculinity for yourself, and stop bitching about the ways in which women show up. If that woman shows up on some fuck shit and she's on some
We're not
whack
bitching about the way women show up.
1970
Most
stuff,
women show up
but you
representing a lot of the
do.
ideas that we've
That's
said, and they
but what
agree
you're
with it.
doing in this moment is you're saying, but what about the girls that do
I'm
X,
not
Y, and
bitching
Z
about it.
in
I
the
like
different-"
it. No, wait. This is where you're misunderstanding me. First off,
Okay.
I think the idea of hypergamy is great because it forces niggas to level up. So I love hypergamy. But second, so since all men who hold the idea, whatever the fuck we're talking about, body count, are terrible and misogynistic men, are all women who are hypergamous misandrous and terrible women?
I think that what we have to be mindful of is where is the intent versus the impact. I don't think that it's the intention of all men who are hypergamous to cause that, right? But the impact on women is still the same.
No,
The
wait. But
system-
would you define it as misogynistic for men that care about body count? Yes or no?
I do.
All right.
Because
Would you say it's misandrous? Would you say it's equally misandrous and bad for the women who are hypergamous who expect their men to go out and earn more while they have a more leisure life? Would you say that those people are misandrous?
Absolutely. I do not think that it is okay for anybody. First of all, my relationship is, but here's the thing though, y'all are laughing because y'all have not experienced women like me, and so therefore women like me should not exist. Or you?
No, I'm laughing because I was just saying at least you're consistent. I'm saying at least you're consistent. I disagree with you, but at least you're consistent.
Yeah.
Wait,
The
so
thing about it, disagreeing with my truth doesn't make sense, right? My truth is in my relationship, I don't believe in somebody bringing in more or less. I make more money than my partner, but we pull in the same amount. The rest of the money that I have goes into some other place where we can use it together. But the amount of money that we spend on the home, the amount of money that we spend on vacation, the amount of money that we decide to spend on things that we do together is equal, because I never want to be in a space where I get to hold something over somebody's head because I make a certain amount of money
Wait,
more.
I'm not
right?
saying that women can't earn more than men.
What I'm saying is, in this particular situation, there is a space for me to agree that, yes, it is bullshit for you to think that a man should come in and take care of you wholeheartedly and you do absolutely nothing and that not be called out as well. The fact of the matter is, I think that if you are going to have a double standard for what a man should be able to do, then he should be able to also have a double standard for the ways in which he's going to fund your lifestyle, if that is the lifestyle that you want to live. The problem with the body count thing is, like Prime tried to point out, and y'all shut that shit down, right? Is that body count is not just one of those things that holds up on a social conversation. Those things do become violent in certain conversations because of the assumptions that are made about women who have certain body counts, right? It does not just stop at the conversation. You're not seeing men that are being murdered by women for not making a certain amount of money. You're not seeing men that are being murdered by women because he's a scrub and he's sleeping in his mama car, or he's driving around in some bitch car from 1997, right? But you are seeing women.
Why is he a scrub? You just said his value, his economic value doesn't
The
matter.
same way that a woman who sleeps around a lot is a whore, dude.
You're derailing what she's saying.
That comment was in the perspective of someone judging them, obviously.
Yeah.
How is it that hard to comprehend? Jesus fuck, dude.
Yeah, I don't understand. Like, this is a patriarchal.
Are we gonna jump down his throat? Like we can't be provocative and ask questions like how y'all doing the whole time.
This
Making
is
our argument
concern
the
trolling.
complete nonsense.
Just-
You're allowed to do that the same way. Y'all did that talking about
Hope
women
finish.
getting
Let Hope finish a point. Then we do have to move on to someone else.
There's a point in this.
At the end of the wow, wow.
No.
That's a joke.
No.
No, he's just slinging money.
No.
He's trolling
So
right now.
it's one of those things where I feel like if we're gonna have that same energy, that we need to keep that shit across the board. Like, I don't mind the idea of those of men having that thought process, but what I think that men need to understand is that the consequences are different. You calling a woman a hoe, whether it's true or not, a woman having this body count thing on her, whether it's true or not, a woman existing as a sexual being who is overtly sexual, whether it is true or not, can become dangerous. A man being seen as somebody who is less of an earner is not necessarily dangerous. It is just embarrassing to the public eye. And I think that that's the thing that we're missing here, is that we can't be out here just overlooking the fact that when you call a woman a hoe, men and most people who have more power over her in society, right, including other women, right, who don't deem themselves to be hoe, right, they have power to then excommunicate and even cause harm and violence to this woman without people caring, because people care less about women who exude and who show up in the world a certain way sexually. And we can't.
So,
We
Hope,
can't
do you place? Hope, do you place less value on men that have small penises?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So,
I think individual, but there's differences. I think individually
Django,
Okay.
Django's been waiting. Django.
So something
Get it
that
finished.
to go back real quick to what Fanatiq said, there is a certain amount of biology that comes in when you're hiring someone. That is true. However, we can also agree that there's obviously a job selection or like an education selection that women choose, not based off of biology, but based off of the way that people expect them to act. It's obvious that society does have impacts. It's obvious that biology has impacts. It's okay to say both exist because that is reality. However, that doesn't mean we should just let that continue. Promoting women getting into STEM fields and promoting them to get into higher paid jobs because they before have not been pushed to that, but guys have been pushed, is completely fine to do. Because if we're holding them
shit
back,
that I do.
Yeah,
cool. You talk about the shit that I actually do. Good
I
shit.
agree. That's cool. That type of thing is good. I think it's kind of the same thing with the body count, where we look at this society. Oh, actually, not the same thing, but part of it is that we look at how the society looks at women, and we say, well, women they're like this too. But we're saying that the rationale for what society is saying, that part itself is the misogynistic part. Now, people acting on that obviously comes down from society being like that. That's very obvious. So when a guy is acting like that, like a woman is just a number, that's because people tell him women, they're just a body count for you. Go get as many as you can. That's why he treats women that way. Okay? You have to understand that in order to say, like, hey, maybe the guy isn't trying to be misogynistic. He's just reflecting what society is doing. But it's easy to say society itself, if there is a backing for that, I'd love to hear it. But to say like, oh, like guys and girls,
backing for it is that the consequences of sex can be different for different sexes.
That's exactly
So
it.
that's what's
Get into
different.
that. He said it. I'm gonna go ahead and let you got it.
Okay. Just give me a few of the consequences.
Wait, hold on. Wait. Okay, really quickly, I was going to address a few things. First off, earlier, Hope, you made the statement that, Django, I promise you, I'm going to go through it. She spoke before you. I just had these on notes. You had made the statement that, someone shouldn't be, less of a valuable as a human being. And it's not that you're devaluing them as a human being because of their body count. You'd be devaluing them as a partner. There are plenty of things where I would say this is a person that's incompatible as a partner because of some specific attribute. Like, again, be it a lack of faith, be it just amorality in my belief, right? Like, if that was the case, then that would say, okay, you're not a valuable partner. Now, you could still be my kid's teacher, you could still be the basketball coach, you could still be my freaking psychologist, you could be my doctor, you could be literally anything. You're just not a suitable partner because I want to instill and inculcate my children with the exact same values. So I don't think it's devaluing as a human being, just saying you're incompatible as a partner. Secondly, you said Django, you were saying that women are pursuing careers because that's kind of what society said, and I hate to quote this guy because he's such a douchebag, but Jordan Peterson really eloquently pointed out that, in Scandinavian countries where they have incredible societal freedom, where it's as sex freedom as we can get, women tend to the differences in their choices are significantly more pronounced. Once we give them all of the opportunity to be able to choose what they want, they choose to go to nursing. They choose to avoid STEM. And so it doesn't seem like society is pushing people like to do something. Like equity is like obviously such a ridiculous dream, right? Equality of opportunity is always great. And I do believe that there were in previous times, and even maybe still to this day, there isn't an equality of opportunity, or at least there hadn't been. And so for that reason, I want that to be there. But like the idea that women are choosing it specifically because society is saying so is absolutely not true. And finally, to your third point, trust me, I was taking notes regarding what specifically would it be the consequences of sexual promiscuity for women versus men? Well, in a lot of cases, as we obviously know, the vast majority of men are more likely to abandon their family than women are. So in the cases in which a woman gets pregnant, for one, now she's unable to work, right? Like during that time, she becomes a burden on her family. And if the husband or if the guy who got her pregnant is a douchebag and doesn't actually take care of his responsibility and raise his kids, that is almost a guaranteed, like for the rest of her life, she'll be in poverty, right? Like that is one of the most significant outcomes that we can say for women who have children, Black women in particular, who have children out of wedlock, then the outlook is poverty. So then at that case, now that person is now a strain on the rest of their family. That's also one of the things like that. So those consequences are the highest, whereas for men can go ahead and have kids and then just abandon them niggas and then nothing ever happens. It's really atrocious. We should do better about making sure that men are responsible in that sense. But like that's one of the that's the most significant one. And
hold on. I want to address this, and then I want to Django back real quick, right? I just gotta because what you're following is this strain of thought that it's a moral failing.
That's true,
right? Like that's where it ends up going. Now, you didn't say that. You didn't say that, but that's what it ends up being. That this is a moral failing, right? Like why is it that women who give birth out of wedlock fall into poverty, right? It's because we don't supply them with help, right? It's because like why did you open your fucking legs? This is your fault, right?
No,
Prime. I'm not saying you're saying that. I'm not trying to put those words in your mouth.
Prime, what you're saying is just false. I'm saying what you're explaining is false.
Well, you'll wait for me to finish, and then you'll understand whether it's false or not. Okay. What I'm trying to say is that that's how our society looks at it, right? That's how and you don't have to take my word for it. Politicians talk about this shit all the time, right? Like, how could they? There's something wrong with the family, right? Let God back into your life or whatever the fuck, right? Because you people aren't living life the proper way. You are less than, right? You have this moral failing, and so why should we give you the support, right? Why are you like feeding off of society because you did that? You took that step.
So
You
Prime,
had
can I ask you a question?
those women, right? It's
Prime, I'm gonna ask you a simple question. If you had 2 kids, could you stream the way you do?
No. Yeah, I'm saying okay.
No, can you answer the question?
No.
Could you stream the way that you do now if you had 2 kids?
Because the reason why these women are in that situation is because they have less support. And other countries, and a few other countries, rich other countries, they give women support, amazing amount of support, right? Whether you are married or not, right? So they have the resources, so they can overcome the challenges.
There's a country where single mothers are economically just as successful as non-single mothers, right? That's
Anything
what
with, I'm not saying that an economic strain won't ever not be an economic strain, but I'm saying that the obstacles that are in their way are lessened when we as a society value them, right? And don't put a moral judgment on them and say that,
but no, Prime. But that value, that value can be there in absence or with the presence of a moral judgment. You can still decide that that's the best thing to do, like to make sure that you're supporting these women. And we do. We recognize even still, we do things to support them. We give them welfare and things like that. But clearly, it's not enough. It is a sentence, bro. You're literally going to be in poverty. Now there are exceptions. I have a sister who had a child out of wedlock. That sister has always been particularly well. She started working at the age of 16. She has never stopped. So she's not going to be, she's not a statistic. She never got any government aid. People can choose to do that, but we know that the vast majority of cases, this will be true, right? And further,
I'm understanding. No, you're not understanding me. I'm saying yes, that is the case. You're right. You're correct there. You're going to
let me finish. I do understand.
Yeah, no, you didn't. No, you didn't, because then you went on.
You didn't let me finish. I was going to address it. I was just finishing saying one thing.
No, because I'm saying that, yes, that will be the case. You will more likely be in poverty in the society that we built. Why did we build that society though? The society.
Let me ask you a question. So let me ask you a
Wait,
question.
no, wait, he's done
Pardon.
this twice. Please, let me
Yeah,
just finish this
yeah.
point. Thank you. Hold on, wait a minute. Like, I did understand that. My point was that whether or not, even with society, like taking on this burden, right? Now at this point, this is a strain. As I said from before, it's a strain even in the other countries in which you have the most support. Show me the country, name it to me, and I will look it up right now while we're in this call, and we will obviously see that single mothers still have a financial strain greater to that than their non-childbearing counterparts. So the fact of the matter is, it will irrevocably be a strain in the vast majority of cases. That's what I'm talking about. That's a strain. And if the government
I already fucking said that. So I don't know if
the strain won't only be on the family. It'll also be on the government, and it'll also be on the society. And I want to point out that there's also the same moral impetus or the same moral descriptor that's talking about the fact that people are having these children out of wedlock. They're talking about the black men too. It's one of Republicans' go-to talking points whenever they want to talk about black culture, that marriage rates are obviously different. We recognize that there are problems that come. Children do better when they're in two-parent households. That's just factually accurate. So it's not about us just saying morally somebody's wrong. It's about recognizing this is harmful to children. We're recognizing it's harmful to the individual, and it does become a strain on the society.
It's
And what Prime is missing.
I feel like
Prime,
people are
this is what
holding.
you're missing. Hold on, wait. Hold on,
Django,
this
finish your point.
It's
Django,
just
finish
been
your
y'all.
point.
I was
I never
so
got the. All
few
right, I'll go
things.
up to
with Fanatiq, so that Scandinavian study, it did receive a correction, so I'm going to look into that study, but I'm not 100% sure it's like super sound.
It's sound.
But
It's the most sound research on the topic.
there was a correction. Okay, that's what I'm saying. So I'm going to go back through it because what Jordan Peterson said was before that correction. So I'm going to see if that correction holds true. Okay, I don't think that's.
I respect that, Django. Thank you. Please give that to me when you're done with the correction. I don't like Jordan Peterson. I would love for him to be wrong.
Yeah, I think I have a link to the correction. So
Has this situation been corrected?
Absolutely the right.
I'm sure he has another point. Hold on, let him say it.
Anyways, fuck. What was the other thing? Oh, the stuff about the stuff about women and being promiscuous and therefore having a kid. I don't know if we went through this because I was looking for stuff and for content. We should probably, instead of like shaming women for trying or for having body counts as a result of this, probably should aim towards just safer sex is probably the better idea, and offering this to and having availability of it, rather than saying, well, as long as people abstain, because abstinence works, okay? As long as people just abstain, they won't have as many kids. Easy. So the better route to go is probably to say like, hey, instead of like,
or you can say choose better partners, right?
This is
more. There's a lot of
more complicated.
Would help. All I'm
we're
saying,
not talking about STDs though. We're not talking about STDs or safe sex. We're talking about because even if you were to ask
kids,
I get you. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm
talking about STDs.
Oh, okay. Well, sure. Protected sex. It doesn't matter if they don't have kids or not. Like that's not a necessary induction into this conversation, because clearly, in the case that they were talking about earlier, kids was never the conversation. The conversation was just about like if a woman has a certain level of body count, then that automatically disqualifies them for those individuals.
Ooh, that's what I wanted to.
Okay, we talked about the consequences. One of the things you raised was a woman can get pregnant, the dad leaves, and then there's a child that they often will.
Yeah.
Take money
So Django. So one thing you can talk about is you can say, hey, we should have free condoms. But the truth is, there's a lot of people who would rather have sex without those things. So even if you make it broadly more available, there are people like me who don't engage with condoms at all. So and I'm not a minority of people. So even if you prescribe that we're gonna give everybody free condoms, we're gonna mail them to you, that doesn't mean that people are gonna engage with them. So it doesn't mean that the problem is inherently that there's not enough education around safe sex or that there is not enough available contraception.
Now, there's other types of contraception that do not affect your sex. Obviously, there's right. So
it's more complicated.
Birth control that people don't like. There's vasectomies that men don't want to get. All of that stuff exists. True, but a lot of people don't want to engage with them.
A lot of these, if you offer people birth control, or if you offer people,
and a lot of people don't like birth control. They don't like the side effects of birth control.
Just because
I'm showing you that the problem is not just throw a condom on, go get birth control, go get
access. But access does statistically lead to less.
Her body count comes with a lot more negatives than, hey, we're going to offer some birth control. If you decide not to take it, it's kind of on you. Offering condoms to people, if they decide not to use that, that's on them. That's kind of better than trying to get this whole societal standard on women that ends up just having a bunch of negative impacts on them.
Right, but Django,
It's more than
increasing access. Oh, go ahead, Wiki.
I was just gonna say it's more than that entirely as well. Like I think it's twofold. It's like yes, you should have safer sex options. You should have options to terminate pregnancies, in my opinion. But you also have a problem with like a reduction in like birth rates in the country. So it's like there's also you want to address the reasons why people aren't having kids, as well as helping people who don't want to have kids. One obviously is one that you can do in the short term and you can make changes right away. But overall, if you want the country to continue and be successful, you'd want to see why people aren't having children, and you want to promote people having children. And it's like a long-term thing and a short-term at the same time. And you can never forget that part. Like, there's people out there that really do want to have kids. They just want that shit to be more accessible to them versus just people who want to have sex all the time. And these people could be the same and they could be separated. It's just like I don't like the idea of framing it as we just want to have safer sex options. Because what about the people that are like, I don't know, like Gambit has kids, I don't know, Fanatiq, I assume you don't have kids, like Hope, etc. Like, what about the individuals who are older than myself that might be in a situation where it's harder for them to have kids and they want to have kids? Like there should be some more aid given to them. It should be made easier for people who are American to have children in America if you want our country to prosper, versus like looking for ulterior means.
I don't disagree with any of that, but I mean, yes, there is kind of a decrease in birth rate, but I think that's way down the priority list of the average American, like in the America as a whole. Like that's something we should be addressed, but it's probably like number 20 on the list of things to address. I think something that Fanatiq said earlier that I just really disagree with is he said that like the concept of like sex partners only extended to like their value as a personal partner. Individually, everyone can have, I always say that everyone can have whatever standards you want to have. Like no one can make you unpack things. Like if you said that I only like 6'8", purple skin, green haired people, like you might have a tough time, but you are allowed to hold that individual standard till the cows come home, and nobody can stop you. Nobody can tell you who to be with. Like, but when we make broader like societal not prescriptions, I was about to say just like broader societal critiques. Like what we're saying is when we make criticism about women's bodies count, it doesn't just affect them as partners. Like it actually does affect them in the workplace. Like places like schools don't want to hire teachers if the teacher comes off as slutty, or if or just in general, like if there's in society when we associate women with like sexual positivity, like those women are generally shunned by society, whether it be like women entering and exiting like sex work and the porn industry and like a number of things. These things do affect larger things than just like your ability to be your individual partner.
And that's because of the fact that in reality, when a societal standard is extremely pervasive, then while it will be immediate, like there will be immediate reconciliation with that opinion within the individual couple, but it's going to extend even further because it happens to be like a really pervasive idea, right? So like if 95% of people feel that a person who does A is unworthy, right? An individual can make that assessment, and if society as a whole has come together to make this idea that a person that does X is unworthy, then yeah, it's going to have some larger societal impacts. But for the purpose of this video, they were talking about their individual opinions. And I also want to say, I don't think it's necessary. I'm not rooted in misogyny. I've been celibate. We're in the month of November. I've been celibate for an entire year now, 12 whole freaking months. As I've said myself, I wish that my body count was lower. I wish I would have done better. I don't know what the freak was wrong with me, but I'm not just pushing this onto women. I would look down on the individuals. I think the dudes that were in that video that we're talking about, yeah, I'm just running through them and doing all sorts of nonsense. I think that's harmful for society. Obviously, we see all of the harms that come from the amount of Black children born out of wedlock and how much their economic prospects are completely affected by this. So and again, I know that birth control exists. Clearly, even though birth control exists, we're still running into a problem where there's still a large amount of children who are being born out of wedlock now. It's becoming incredibly high, right? And it does seem like it has all sorts of societal problems associated with it, as far as education, as far as economics, as far as interacting with the criminal justice system, all of these things, right? So clearly there are problems associated with it. I would look down on both individuals for being completely lascivious. However, I recognize not everybody's going to subscribe to my moral system. And so if you're going to do what the freak you want to do, then go ahead and be as as safe as you can possibly be. Please be responsible, and then, you know, live your life the way you freaking want to. It's not my job to control how other people live their lives, but I don't think that it's misogynistic necessarily in my case, for sure.
But you're all you're doing is being descriptive. You're acknowledging, like, yeah, this happens to women, but like the conversation we're having is like these broader societal things shouldn't be happening. Like that it is a problem that we should correct in society. Like, it doesn't mean anything to say like, oh yeah, well we should shame sex for women. That just happens. It sucks. Like we're having a conversation. Like we should do something about that.
Yeah. So Bam, this is the thing, and this is the thing that like when we're in a left-leaning circle, people don't like to hear. If people are making decisions that disproportionately cause them to be poor, I think that they should be shamed for, not shamed, but I think that having a standard that's higher than that is a good thing, and I think that drives society forward. So if there's an activity that somebody is engaging in that could disproportionately land them into a situation where they are poor for the rest of their lives, then I think that those decisions should be avoided. But what a lot of people like to say is, no, everybody should be able to do whatever they want, free of whatever consequences. And what I tell you is, you're an asshat. Go live in the real world. These things that we talk about, when people adopt these ideas, there are negative consequences that can happen to them. So while I'm a person who believes that people should be able to engage in sex as much as they want, I understand the real world impacts of that. So I talk about both of them. I talk about, one, hey, it would be really, really cool if people could be as sexually free as they want. But then I also talk about, hey, these are the dangers if you do engage in this. But we like to virtue signal and just say everyone should be able to do everything. And it's silly.
Is there even a correlation though? Like,
yes, there is.
Not even getting the conversation. Is there a correlation that says that like people, like wealthy people, have less sex? Like people who aren't in poverty have less sex? Like I don't even know if that's like true correlatively. I don't know if there's any relationship between those two things.
Wait. We're talking about
Well, he's saying that like this is a bad decision that could lead to poverty. I'm like, having more sex could lead to more poverty
outside of marriages, engaging in lots and lots of sex, right?
Right. I'm saying, do rich people not do this? Do rich people just like?
No,
Jesus
bam.
Maybe I missed it. I'm just curious.
I get you. Causal and correlative relationships don't always have to be don't have to work both ways. Like, because if A then B doesn't mean that if B therefore A, right? Like, it doesn't always work that way. So like saying that people who do this are more likely to end up in poverty does not mean that people who are wealthy are necessarily haven't not done it, or all people who are in poverty have had this situation. That's just not the way it works. But we do know for sure that people who have children out of wedlock are significantly more likely to have more poverty, to experience poverty, and we do know that higher sexual partners are associated with higher rates of STIs and STDs and higher rates of unwed pregnancy, right?
Okay, yeah, that's fair. I mean, it's like
so, Bam, I want to ask you a basic question though. I want to ask you a basic question.
Yeah.
If there's an activity that can cause babies to be birthed, do you think if you engage in that activity more so than others, that the probability, not the exact number, but the probability that you will have a baby is increased? Yes or no?
Well, but see, this is different because now
you answer yes or no? Wait. Before you go off into whatever you were about to do,
yes, but that doesn't matter.
Okay,
that's irrelevant. That just means nothing
honest,
without context. Like you have to, like, you want a gotcha or you want the context?
No, I wanted you to give me an answer before you went on your rant. Go on your
not if you're having Bill Clinton
sex.
That's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, that's sure, but that has nothing. That has nothing to do with body counts, because like the amount of sex you have and the amount of people you've had sex with have no relation to each other.
Wait, you can't. Maybe you don't hear. This is the question I asked you.
I know you said the amount of sex you have leads to more babies. I said yes. I already said yes. But I'm saying that has nothing to do with the broader conversation on body count.
Whether it's with the same person or with different people doesn't change the activity of sex that can produce a baby. So you going down the whole pathway that you want to go down of, oh, maybe they're just having one person, blah, blah, blah. What I'm saying in this conversation where we're talking about actions disproportionately leading to poverty, that doesn't matter. So the thing is, that's why there are people that believe in waiting to have sex when you're married, right? So you can say, hey, there's one person that's just having sex with the other one person 1,000 times. That's why some people say, hey, I don't believe in premarital sex, because even though it's one person, the likelihood of you landing in poverty is increased when you engage in premarital sex. So that's why some people take a position against both. They take a position against premarital sex and they take a position against body counts.
But do you think marital sex is inherently less poverty? Like, what if two poor people
Yes,
have
yes, yes.
five
I
kids?
think yes. I think the data on whether people that are married and unmarried that engage in sex, I think the economic data is very clear. I think you can look it up on almost any site that you trust with statistical data.
Sure, but the issue comes down to the children. I'm about to say, like, the issue comes down to the number of children and your like income. Sure, two incomes is always better than one income. I'm not disagreeing with that, but I'm saying that I'm saying that a married couple that has 47 kids still can't take care of 47 kids. And I know I jumped to an extreme, but like,
you don't have to jump to that. If you control for any of the factors, for literally any of the factors, like married for literally every outcome, I implore you to find me one.
I already just said it.
Okay, good. Married people who have children versus non-married people who have children. The outcome for the married couple is significantly better in literally every metric. So if you look at a married person who has 47 kids that you talked about, I promise you they will be economically more viable than an unmarried person who had 47 freaking kids. Even though we shouldn't be using ridiculous extremes like this. And no matter what the case,
but I never disagree with any of this.
I'm sorry. Okay, good. So then why do you bring up that point?
Because
we're bringing up why your counterpoint is irrelevant. That's what we're doing right now. We're trying to
it's not just income.
You're attaching sex to kids. I mean, I go to increases your chances, but none of these things are like inherent. You're just trying to justify your point.
It's not just income when it comes to when it comes to a single parent household. It's like there's the idea of like time. It's like one individual has to be the earner. So like where is the time that's put into the children? Like who's taking care of the children? The strain on that. Like it's more than just talking about like somebody could be like make $200K a year and perhaps they're just not there for their children because someone else is there for their children that they pay for. It is like there is an element of it that is like money, but there's also an element of having like role models in your household, somebody that is in your space, somebody that's taking time with children. Yeah. Otherwise, like you just have a provider instead of a parent.
I also feel like I'm saying somewhat weird because I feel like
why exactly marriage is so important when it comes to the rearing of children. Thank you, Wiggle.
The contrast is still weird because I feel like women who are going to be sleeping around more are probably going to be there. I feel like those women are on contraceptives. They're on birth control or something.
Well, I don't know. What's the out of wedlock birth rate and why is it increasing so dramatically over the last 20 years?
I mean, that could be one. That could be a part of a bunch of different social economic reasons, but I don't think that is necessarily indicative of someone having a high body count and then them just because like they're gonna it's more likely for someone if they know they're not going to be in a non-monogamous relationship to be on some sort of birth control.
I wasn't addressing the body count thing. I was just addressing the statement that you made that people who are going to have large amounts of partners are most likely going to be on birth control, which I just don't know.
That was my claim. I mean, looking at this research,
that's what I pushed back against.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot more evidence that goes into saying that there's people who are going to be more promiscuous tend to be more using contraceptives or more.
Can you link that to us? We'd love to see that. That sounds awesome.
Do you think that married people actually have less kids, or do you think we just don't care about married people's kids?
I'm pretty sure that women tend to want condoms more.
Kids, Bam, please, come on. I went through this. I thought you said you understood it.
Just because I agree with it, I get this better, but I'm saying,
do you think that really stupid question? So now
no, I didn't.
You answer it. You literally just asked the question. Do we not care about married people's kids? Which means you didn't understand the point that I was making earlier. We don't have to care
because they do better. Got right. That doesn't matter.
We don't have to care about married people's kids because married people's kids like
do better. Got it.
Right. They
that
don't have the same outcomes. It's not the same strain on the country. It's not the same strain on society. Like, so that's why we don't care about them. We don't have to care.
Oh, but that doesn't speak to Jamali's point about people out of wedlock potentially having less children. So I'm saying like we have to make a comparison. Or like I'm saying just because people in wedlock probably do have more kids than people out of wedlock. Like if I don't have the numbers in my face, but I'll be willing to guess that. The only thing is we don't care though. So but don't push back on Jamali's point when he says that women out of wedlock probably have less kids.
You don't understand.
You literally push back against
he said people out of wedlock are more likely to be using protection.
If they're having sex out of wedlock, people tend to be more averse to risk for STIs, STDs, and pregnancy. Women tend to want to have some sort of contraceptive if they're going to be more out there and sleeping with multiple people, whether that be birth controls for themselves or condoms for their partners.
I hear you. I'm sorry I let Bam take us down this argument. That wasn't the initial statement you made. Thank God that my memory's on point. What you originally said was that women who it wasn't a related thing to marriage at all. You were just making a statement that women who are having who have a large amount of sexual partners are probably going to be wearing contraception or using some sort of contraception. That's what you said. This had nothing to do with marriage. I don't know why Bam took it back there. And I said that we don't know that for sure, and clearly not enough of them, because clearly we have these out of wedlock an increase in out of wedlock pregnancies and out of wedlock babies. Then Bam responded and asked, why don't we care about this other thing, which had nothing to do with it.
It had everything to do with the conversation.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You can't stop it.
I didn't see the connection. I didn't see the comparison.
Yeah, just to say one thing, I thought the on Fanatiq's wedlock point, isn't that because of this is my claim, and I'll look it up after I say it, like unprotected sex among teenagers and sex education in schools. I thought that was why we're seeing higher rates of children out of wedlock.
No. It's not just that, because we're seeing it even if we control for different ages in adult populations. What we're finding is that people don't feel like the same sort of moral standards that required people to be to have children in wedlock. There used to be insane amounts of stigma associated with having children out of wedlock that just isn't there anymore. The amount of people cohabiting at this point is significantly higher, whereas there used to be a stigma with that. And of course, I don't know if you been in this situation, but once you have some in-house pussy, it seems like, you know what I mean? You just kind of get a little bit more lax and all of that kind of nonsense. And then at that point, it's like, you whatever. Whereas you have to take, when you're being particularly selective about your sexual encounters, it allows for more planning. But when you're just sitting there at the house and you get relaxed and it's just like, bro, we wake up and do whatever the freak we got to do, chances are sometimes you might not reach for that condom, and you get more and more comfortable with that person. So there's all of these societal factors and different societal attitudes that are contributing towards this, and it's not just amongst teen. I don't even know if teen pregnancy is increasing dramatically, but I do definitely know, even if we control the different for the adult age group, people being born out of wedlock is also increasing there. But yes, I agree. We probably do need to provide more contraceptions. I also think that sex education is absolutely terrible the way that we do it in this country. We probably need to improve that. Abstinence-only sex education is literally the worst thing that could ever be done, because niggas is going to try to get their nut. I don't understand. That's I agree with you on all those points. I'm just saying that that's not the only reason for this phenomenon.
Yeah. I also feel like what you're saying doesn't necessarily account for whether or not people are having kids out of wedlock on purpose, whether or not these people are going to do this because they are either pregnant with someone and then they break up with them and don't want to be with them anymore, but want to keep the baby, or the individual nuance behind what someone might be doing in that. All of those things could be a factor. And we're seeing more and more that women can probably take care of themselves a little more because they can work and stuff, or there's government assistance that has been able to enable these people to be single children, single mothers.
Ends in poverty. That's what we see more and more.
Yeah, you can say that maybe there might have been better outcomes now, just because women are able to work more jobs and it's more normalized and things like that. So it's not necessarily as bad as it ever was, but it's still significantly worse. It's still really bad. It's still predominantly is going to lead to poverty for Black women to have a child out of wedlock. That's just still fact.
That is true for Black women specifically, particularly.
No, for all women.
It's way worse for Black women. Yes.
Yeah, but it is for all women. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
So we should feel like the easier route?
You agree? Would you agree that if
we got real distracted by this this baby talk, right, and moved away from?
It's a part of it.
But
it's not distraction.
Well, you could definitely.
It's 3 degrees of separation away.
I mean,
no, it's not.
It's not that part separate. But let's say
more interesting.
Not separated at all.
Would you care about the body count of someone who's super wealthy and they're just in a poly relationship?
No, I don't. I don't at all.
Being a poly.
It's it's a different section of the conversation.
Society would still care.
It's not exactly the problem of the body count. It's the problem of the body count within the context of their situation, right?
Well, on average, it was a general conversation, right? So the general conversation is that the average person isn't going to be incredibly wealthy and therefore innocent.
Yes,
sure.
You
Yeah,
just
I'm
pointed
just-
out like a crazy outlier. So yeah, and for Gambit, he wouldn't care about that. For me, I would still think it's a problem. I think like gross promiscuity, I think, or rampant promiscuity, I think is somewhat problematic. But that's my own moral standards. Of course, everybody is free to live however the freak they want to. I don't expect everybody to hold my values, but what I
Yeah.
do expect is for my partner to hold those values. But I
Yes.
hold those same values for myself. This is not something misogynistic. I'm not just putting it
That's
on
not
other people.
misogynistic. No, we're saying
Yeah,
people in the
wait, hold
video
on.
were misogynistic because
on,
they
wait,
did
to
the same
clear-
things that
We're misogynistic.
Wait, Jamali, I want to clear up what I said.
Yeah, what was
when
the
I
question
said
you
I
had?
don't when I said I don't care, I was saying that in the context of the conversation about disproportionate outcomes in poverty, that configuration doesn't lead to that. So I don't care about it in that stance. On a moral stance, I would care, just like what Fanatiq said, that people that like, I don't think that's just a good behavior to have, generally speaking, on a general level. But yeah.
Okay, I could see how you could come to the conclusion that morally it's not a good standard to have something like a good standard to have people be openly promiscuous. Sure, but I would say that has more to do with the fact that people aren't properly educated on how to be like as positive and as safe with their sex as possible. If I don't have to worry
Well,
that
people may not like that. You like you're when you assume that the problem is education, you skip the wide amounts of people that don't want to engage with that stuff.
but that's bad.
Yeah.
So
But that might be what. So you say people can be sex positive, but they say, hey, you know what? Hey, I don't want to use condoms. Now all of a sudden they're bad. But
Well,
like,
no,
yeah,
we're talking about the
I
education.
get-
Wait, are you talking about the
Sorry.
education?
Sorry, hold on.
Not-
No.
This is exactly why I thought this is a distraction, right? Like instead, like because the people who are having that conversation, the original conversation that inspired all this in the video, right? It's like are when people have these sorts of conversations, are they like thinking about like the necessarily the rates of like single motherhood and
think
like
they
the
are.
strain on the government?
I
No,
think they
holy
are.
shit! What they're doing is
no.
moralizing women. They're moralizing women and their behavior. That's
I
exactly
said
what
it
they're
earlier,
doing.
Prime. It's because
They're
it's insecurity.
moralizing women and their behavior, and they are they are continuing on a very long grand tradition, right, of believing that a woman whose sexuality isn't properly under control is a problem, right, and that anyone who is caught engaging or suspected, because you don't actually have to be, right, you don't have to be a quote unquote slut. You can be suspected of being a slut, right? And then you can still have all those consequences, right? Just like whoever is suspected of doing this, whether they've done it or not, is a problem. And they are less than, and then we will
Yeah, so what
moralize
you've
them.
done is
We will moralize them. And then we can, as a society, we have permission to do all kinds of things to them,
No.
including
yes. If you
again,
assume
ignoring
Yeah,
them.
if you assume that the entire world is just a whole bunch of misogynistic people,
Wait.
then yeah, you could come to such a
There
reduction.
are
You don't
absolutely
have
things
to
that
be.
we can do
Kind
to
of
them.
has a lot of
Women
evidence
are
on
the
that
biggest
side, I'm not gonna
victims
lie, my
of
guy.
serial killers and other sorts of things. Literally, people who are more promiscuous or are actual whores on the corners tend to be the most murdered in this country in terms of for serial killers as well.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you why. That's because the people on those corners and things like that tend to be like less connected, because people who end up being prostitutes and things like that, because of the fact the way that it's like done in our society, it's like incredibly unregulated. They're already vulnerable women. Typically, they're like being pimped and things like that, which is absolutely grotesque, which is one of the arguments, though I disagree with it, that's one of the arguments why we should legalize sex work. I don't think we should legalize sex work because y'all know how I feel morally about promiscuous sex. But that's one of the reasons for it, because then there would be maybe possibility of regulation and things like that to protect those people. But furthermore, I don't think, like Prime, you keep making this argument and it's just not true. No one is using the idea of people being insecure about body counts as justification for harm to women. If we were to poll the vast majority of Americans right now, I think we'd get like 99%. I feel like more. I feel like 100% of people, if you were to ask them, if a woman has a high body count, does that mean that she should be like that? That people, if a man finds out that his wife has a high body count before he got with her, does that give him
8 more than
We're gonna
92?
take a poll and let's see how many people admit that they're going to murder a woman for.
No,
Wait.
Sure, no, we should do that. No, it
What
makes
I
sense.
said was, what I said was, if we were to poll people and were to ask them, do they believe that a woman's high body count was justification for violence to be done to her? Not that they would hurt
Same
her,
thing.
but would it be justification for violence to be done to her? The vast majority of, like,
Same
everyone in
thing.
society noted that.
Because they hold
Nah, come
those
on, like
beliefs.
you
Oh, hold
could
on,
be, you
wait.
could be
So
more.
Prime, so hold on. Wait, I want to crystallize this because this is ridiculous. So Prime, your claim is that most men, or some men,
didn't
or
say
all
that.
men
I didn't say
have
that.
these misogynistic views, and they use those
No.
misogynistic views to enable doing violence to women.
No. All right. So well, first of all, misogynistic views, whether most men have I think all of us do. I think every single one of
Yeah,
us,
everyone's
right?
a misogynist.
Oh
Everyone's a
no,
racist.
that's
Everyone's
not what I said. You
transphobic.
can try
Everyone's
to put that. You
homophobic.
can try
Yeah,
to
go
put that
ahead.
in my mouth. Don't worry, you're not gonna work. It's not gonna succeed, right? So you're gonna lose. You're gonna lose at this game. So you might as well not even bother. Okay. So
You just said all men are
so that's not.
misogynistic.
Listen, and then you'll understand what I'm trying to say, right? So no, I think all men, me included, you included, all of us, right, have a certain level of misogynistic views that we have like internalized, right? Just like how women have misogynistic views, right? Oh yeah, just back into that other thing you were saying, right? Just because a woman believes it too doesn't mean it's not misogynistic as well. Whatever, that can be internalized, just like racism can be internalized. Whatever. Moving on, but like yes, we all have these views, right? And we all are, in some extent, are playing upholding a system of patriarchy, right? Including women, right? And upholding a system of patriarchy so we can have a systemic oppression, right? So it doesn't have to be every single man who's involved in the government making decisions, right? About like how women are terrible, right? And they deserve to be punished. It could be that we have cultural systems in place, right, dating back for thousands of years that just keep getting carried over into the future, right, that affect all these things. Now, there's explicit misogyny as well, but there's also a systemic misogyny. You've already heard this speech. I know you have, right, in different contexts, so you can understand this, which is why I don't know why you pretend like you don't understand it now.
Yes, chivalry can't exist without like some level of patriarchy. Like the idea of saying like you want to protect women, like requires a belief that you feel that women can't protect themselves. Which like in which there's some like there's physically there may be some level of truth to that, but as far as like emotionally and like I was about to say like on a broader societal level like there's not a lot of truth.
It's
that.
it's 100%. It's 100% true. But it's not to the extent that people are describing. It's that like that's why we have a state. There's certain crimes that would be committed. It's like one of the widely believed things is that like a rape would occur if we didn't have a state, if we didn't have somebody that was instilling some form of force against people that commit crimes. So like this rape would largely be happening against femme presenting individuals. So yes, like it would be something that we need to protect against. It's part of like what makes certain civilizations great is that you see something that is like biological or what have you, and it's a problem. And then we work together to create systems to expand beyond that and progress beyond that. And this is true for babies as well. Like if you're born a woman or you're born like as soon as you're born in general, no matter what your sex is, or if you're a woman, you're valued by the society. You're valued more than like a man in your society inherently. And then it's about what you do with that. It's about what you do once you get past that point. I think like
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think like when we're talking about like high value individuals, like because we keep getting it back into like the video, I think the video is trying to appeal to this idea, the idea that you can be like a high value person and you should look for high value individuals. And if that's your framework, that's exactly how these individuals would think. If you're somebody that has worked really hard to create this image of yourself and what have you, and you want to have a trophy wife or you want to have a trophy husband, you are going to have extremely critical views and you're going to look for extremely specific things and you're going to want this thing to like hold some standard across society. You want something to wave around. For me, I'm not a high value individual based on their standards. I don't have the same standards as them. They're elitists who are speaking for other elitists. And from my point of view, like I can understand why people would view things that way. If you were somebody that was like like let's say you made six figures, you might have different perspectives than me because you have less time in the day. You made certain sacrifices or what have you, and so you're looking for something that's different than me. And I would consider myself like probably around the average or lower than the average even. And so like I don't look at these people and think like they speak for me. I look at them and I'm like, wow, it must be nice to live that kind of life, but like it's not a reality.
I don't think that though I hear what you're saying, Wiggle, but I don't think that they're people of high value because they judge people. They look down on people based on something that is, in my opinion, it doesn't matter. Like, that doesn't hold water. I disagree with I agree with your idea, but I disagree with the words that you used about them.
Yeah,
No,
I think like
he's using language that they use, right? He's not saying that
Yeah.
that what they consider valuable is like something he agrees with, right? He's just saying going off their measurements of like value,
Yeah,
then like he
he
doesn't.
said
I
his
think
It's.
standard by
Can I
his
address what
standard
Bam
they
said real
would.
quick? Can I
Yeah,
address what
sure.
Bam said?
No, go
'Cause
ahead.
Bam-
And just want to say that right now we're moving into bonus time. If someone has to leave, right, that's okay. Just drop out. We'll have you again, like in the future. Thank you so much for joining us. But like,
I
if you
think
need to, what?
I think what we've noticed is that ABE is so lit
Mm.
that we should just extend it. Like
Mhm.
it's
we
so
really
lit.
should, bro.
Three
Like, for
topics.
real.
3 topics.
Yeah.
And
But
it's not everywhere that Black people even get to speak like this. So yeah, I agree with what Gamble just said.
We should have a
this is the
6-hour
best panel for this thing, and we just need to start reaching out and reaching more Black people and getting more Black voices involved in this thing because Twitch is super duper duper white and Black voices need their spaces. But Bam, when people are saying things about like whether or not women like they want to protect women, that's not rooted in misogyny or it's not rooted in any of those other things. Some of that again would be like biologically derived, right? Like we look at like the amount of physical violence that happens to women, like domestic violence. It happens significantly more to men because more to women because men are more powerful, right? Like they are physically more capable, right? And it's really disgusting that you would have gross men that would abuse their power in this way, but we feel the need to protect women because in some spaces, in some instances, women are incapable of protecting themselves. In the vast majority of domestic violence cases, if the woman decided I'm just gonna go ahead and fight this nigga, in the vast majority of cases, the woman would get destroyed in that scenario. So we as a society should step up and say, man, we're gonna look out for women. It's our job to always want to look out for the people who are less capable. And that's not rooted in some sort of looking down upon or misogyny or any of those things. These are some of these things are literally biologically derived.
Yeah, I acknowledge the physical portion, but like there's things we do in society that like you don't even think about. Even something as simple as like opening a door. Like I'll notice a
Oh
woman
my
like I'll open
God.
a, no, I'm
No.
saying I'll
Oh.
notice a woman like have like literally across the parking lot walking towards the door and I'm like, oh okay, I need to hold the door open for her because her dainty female arms can't do so.
No,
But like
that-
if it's a
Oh,
dude, I
man.
legit doesn't cross my mind. But like that actually wasn't even the bar.
That's misogyny to you.
I do think that like
Wait,
oh,
can
damn,
you
I'm
answer?
talking really
Is,
loud
co-
now.
is holding
wait,
doors
yeah,
no,
yeah,
misogyny?
is
hold
that
on. Let me finish my point.
But when you said that, can you just say,
Sure.
we'll let you keep going. Just answer that question. Is holding the door open for a woman misogyny?
No, not inherently, but I'm
No?
saying
Okay, so that's
it's
nothing to do. Okay, keep going. Then.
What?
Cool.
Wait,
Okay.
what did I
So
do?
you said it for no
I
reason.
know.
He said it for no reason. That's
but
exactly it. Keep going.
cool. So
What the fuck?
yeah. So I'm saying, but like, do you not believe that like I legitimately believe, and I may be lowballing on the numbers, that 20% of Americans don't believe that a woman could be president of the United States because
Oh, sure.
of her
More
vagina
than
and
Okay.
like I said,
yeah,
I like.
that's misogynistic. But
gonna be upset when
that's not-
Biden croaks.
Yeah,
But
that's
it
but
comes
that's
from
not
a
what
place
you
of like
said, Bam.
protection. It
But
comes from a
Bam,
place
that's
of like
not-
a women's not like women's brains can't handle leading
But that's
leadership.
not
Like
what
we
you
have to
said,
protect them.
Bam. Like now
Is
you're
this not
moving to something
chauvinism?
else. Your original statement was that when people make the statement that they want to protect women, it's that's misogynistic. Now,
No, I didn't. I'm talking about
about
chivalry, not just protection. Protection is way broader than
You
chivalry.
didn't mention the word chivalry.
I
earlier.
did. That was the first word I mentioned was chivalry.
Oh my god!
I didn't
wish
hear it
someone
either.
could clip it. You didn't say. Well,
I don't
okay,
think you said it.
You can
just
clip it.
explained
No, you
something
can
that's,
clip
like,
it. I
Yeah,
said
so
chivalry.
no one else heard you say chivalry.
Well, it'll be in the clip.
Maybe you intended to say it, but
I said it.
Okay, good. I'm
To
looking.
be
forward
fair,
to
the
that
example of
clip.
holding a door for a woman for an
Is an
extended period
example
that you
of-
would not
That's
hold
not
for
what
a
he
man,
would.
that
He,
is-
yo,
Nah,
but
that's
he
an
didn't go into
example
that
of
earlier. He didn't go into that. He wasn't talking about holding the door. This is something he just recently said. We're talking about earlier.
Sure, then why did you
He made
laugh
this-
when he was talking about that?
What? Because when he was
Because
talking
we
about
wanted him to
funny
call that
example.
misogyny
Right,
just for the clip.
Right, because
That's the idea of chivalry that he's
Django,
looking at.
Django, you're missing it. Let me walk you through it. Earlier, he made the statement that I'm addressing. He made the statement. The reason why I wrote down the note was specifically because he said that men, or when we say that we're a lot of the things that we believe in things are misogynistic, and that's really what it's rooted in. So when we're saying we want to protect women, that's coming from misogyny. And I was
I
like,
said
what?
chivalry can't exist without some level of patriarchy. the idea of protecting.
But
This is a
there-
quote. Idea of protecting women.
This is part of this is part of this is part of like progress in a way. So it's like originally there would be a point where it's like you see that perhaps there's certain people that should have doors held open for them well in the past. And then as time progresses, for different reasons, we change that and we make it so it's accessible for everybody. So like with the accessibility stuff, I think this happened after like the Vietnam War. We changed things because there was a lot of people that were like vets and stuff that were advocating for like more accessibility for things that we had across the United States. And that stuff is supposed to be for like everybody. Like when we have ramps or we have buttons to press to open doors and stuff, we have braille on stuff. That's something that's for everybody, and that solves for that problem. So it's like you should be holding the door for everybody, but nobody was getting doors held open for them unless they were like perhaps seen as weaker or what have you. And then men would hold doors open for women or the elderly. Women would hold doors open for the elderly, and eventually we got to a point where we just have buttons to press that open the doors for everybody. We have more accessibility. I think this is progress.
Right. Well, a lot of that's exactly right, though. A lot of these things, a lot of the reasons for a lot of the chivalrous acts and things like that were because women were less capable. Women were indeed weaker. Things weren't made as like technological advances have normalized things. Like, for example, like helping a woman get onto a horse. It requires some upper body strength. Women have less upper body strength than men. That's why you used to do those things for them, right? Like there's all of these things that were rooted in biology. Now,
Maybe
obviously,
she was wearing a dress.
Huh?
Or maybe she was wearing a
She's
dress.
wearing a dress.
Maybe she wasn't.
She was definitely wearing a dress.
She was
Maybe
wearing
she
a
didn't have to
dress.
prioritize her strength most of her life, so like that's not a thing that she would build up.
Yeah,
Like,
right,
this-
exactly.
like,
No, hold on. I want you to understand. I'm not making the statement that somehow like the women are incapable, right? Like that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
I know.
right, these are the way things were, and so a lot of our chivalry and things like that. There used to be really, really heavy doors to push open doors. It used to require a lot of strength, and so it was considered a chivalrous thing to do. That used to be a part of it. Like a lot of this stuff was rooted and like just the way things were, and making it easier because they were
I
Hope is
understand
gonna
that
say it. Hope
perfectly.
is
The problem-
misogynistic, isn't it?
Hold
I
on.
see Hope.
The problem is
she's making too many faces.
The
And she-
problem,
Yeah, Hope, we want to hear from you, man. We want to hear from you.
when these things extend into the future, this is
Stop being misogynistic. Let Hope talk.
Let Chris finish because Chris was waiting. So let's.
I'm joking, bro. I'm joking.
Look,
Yo, y'all real serious
No,
today?
no,
This is a serious channel.
Hey, Gambit,
My bad, man. I'm just trying to lighten the mood. That's all.
Bro,
Jesus.
Gavin trying to lighten the mood. Now that's a joke. Now that's
Is it
Look,
okay?
I was
sorry.
just wanting to address, like, I wasn't misunderstanding what you were saying, Fanatic. What I'm saying is, like, when we get into the future where these things aren't, like, much of an issue anymore, right? Fucking doors open themselves these days. Like, why are you still doing that, right? Like, why are you still prioritizing that? Especially if you're holding doors, why aren't you holding doors for everyone, right? Maybe it's a courtesy thing, but if you're prioritizing holding doors for women, like that's rooted in some misogyny. There doesn't have to be any intent to that, but like it's rooted in that.
It's
I'm
not.
sorry.
No.
It
It's
is.
not rooted in misogyny, but like
It makes you a simp.
us. Like, if we were to like vehemently defend that idea because women can't open doors, that would be misogynistic. But it is not.
That's what I'm saying.
It's rooted in the idea that women were not expected to be able to do this. It's not like that's okay. I think.
Yes. Why is it extending into the future? If we know that's not
Right,
like,
I'm just pointing out the line.
But
rooted in
dude, this is why the
very
door
weird.
opening was a weird example. Like that's why I was laughing because it's like there's better examples. You can choose like jobs and other stuff.
This is the
But no,
perfect
I wanted to
example
pick up.
because
Yeah,
it
this was a
shows-
really good example.
It shows how
You go to the
people
really
create-
minutia.
It shows how people take these words and they expand them to be so all-encompassing that they're useless. That's why these things are important for y'all to say. I want y'all to say the dumb point that this is misogynistic because it shows exactly what I was telling Prime earlier. These labels are applied so liberally that they have absolutely no value. When somebody says somebody's a transphobe now, I don't even know what the fuck it even means.
Okay, for
Wait,
one, hold on. Like, I
Alright,
wasn't
alright.
saying it was rooted in the past, right, of misogyny, right? I was saying today, right, your actions are still doing that, and like right now is rooted in some sort of misogyny. Not saying that that's in the past, some past misogyny that we have to do these things. Like, in no way, like we always talk about these things, especially when we talk about racism. Like, you don't have to have intent to be racist, right? You don't have to be like specifically, purposely going out to do certain things to be racist, right? It's just
with that too.
Like,
Yeah.
I
have to have
like
intent to be
like
racist.
It's similar to the
Racism is
racism of
belief.
low
I don't think you have to
expectations.
have intent to be like racist. Like you can do
Racism is
racist actions.
racism. No. Racism is a belief.
Yeah, but I'm saying like racism of low expectations is a thing too. Like
It's a belief. It's
assuming
still
that
part of
black
that belief.
people.
It's still part of that belief that black people are inferior. That's exactly it.
Yes.
Right.
But
It's a
what if
belief.
I'm experiencing that racism through someone's actions and they didn't mean it?
Right. So then at that point, you could probably erroneously assign racism to an individual that wasn't actually racist.
Yes.
But now,
can
what if
call
that
things-
individual commits many racist acts that way, but they're not aware of it?
Right. What if a wait? I don't know that there are necessary. If an individual does acts that we're erroneously assigning racism to which there was no actual racism,
Like the act itself is racist, but they're not aware of
name an
it,
act that
and
is
then they're
necessarily
doing this at a higher rate.
Name,
But
name
the
an act
person,
that,
yeah,
name an act that is necessarily racist.
somebody's watching me when I enter a store because of the color of my skin, and this is their job. They're like their job is
Well,
to prevent
to be very
certain
specific,
loss
they
of
see you-
project.
They
Lost
see you
of-
as a specific person,
Yes.
a suspicious individual. But
Suspicious.
they don't know
Oh,
why.
we're
they
deviating. I'm
like that.
sorry. Hope was supposed
Even
to
if
go
they do
on.
know why.
I thought Hope was like backing off of like she was like whatever. I didn't want to
Oh,
do it.
like you said, she was going.
Oh, you being a misogynist? You think she
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
handle
yeah.
this
Oh, now you
conversation?
speaking for it, Django.
You're
Why
right.
are we
Speak
Her
for women.
female brain can't handle this conversation. That's what you're doing, Django.
Let's
This
not-
is so. This is what misogyny is.
right.
Let Hope
That's it.
speak.
let's not
Let Hope
let's
speak.
not-
You're
And that's
let's
what White
devaluing
Knight
the
for.
word, though, Gambit,
Let's
right?
not
By
speak for
doing
Black
that.
Knight.
Let Hope speak for herself. God, please.
So I don't necessarily think that I agree with the whole like misogyny and holding the door. What I do believe is that it's an evolution of patriarchy, right? And it's an evolution of being able to utilize that patriarchy in ways that show up because of misogyny, right? I think that there might have been a misogynistic view for the reason why it started, but I think that patriarchy tells men, not even for the sake of women, but for the sake of other men, right? That this is what you do as a man because men show up in this way, right? And that's a chokehold that, then bogs down or boils down to masculinity and what that means and what that stands for, which brings us back to the topic because y'all are like peddling and getting all up and through the things, which brings us back to the topic of I think like what we're initially talking about is the ways in which masculinity shows up to police femininity and tell femininity what it's supposed to look like, right? And that is why we have videos like the one that we were discussing where women feel the need to lie because femininity is constantly policed by masculinity. Femininity is often told what it's supposed to look like by masculinity, and by proxy of that, femininity feels the need to show up in a very specific way. And in the event that it cannot, based off of the choices that it has made in life, right, then it is forced to pretend and or acclimate to whatever situation that it is in. And the sad part about that is oftentimes masculinity then says that you are not worthy of my love, my attention, or my time based off of something that I've told you that you're supposed to ascend to that I know that you can't based off of the choices that you have made. And all of that shit is rooted and deeply rooted in misogyny. But I don't think that the door holding thing was the best idea because while I think that it comes from a place of misogyny, what that is simply men telling other men, right, that this is the way that men show up, and this is how we poke our chests out, and this is how we assert dominance, and this is how we show our youth, right, by being able to do things that other people aren't supposed to be able to do, or doing things that look chivalrous. I think that in a large part of the ways, there are a lot of people who exude masculinity and show up in masculine spaces who don't or who aren't necessarily the best spokespeople for masculinity at all, right? You'll have people who go through the community, fuck up the community, are horrible examples of what it means to be a man, but then they do something as simple as hold the door for a couple of old ladies, and they're like, I got my cookie for the day. Like my masculinity is saved, right? I'm a good type of guy. And those same people are the same people who will then go to their circles and call women hoes and sluts and tricks and all of these things, right, for having sex and having sex in a specific way, but then completely overlook the idea of the things that they do that might be frowned upon within their masculinity or the things that might make them less of a mate. I think that's something that you said earlier, Fanatiq, that really had me thinking was this idea of the difference between somebody not being an invalid person, right, but being an invalid mate. And I think that what you are doing is invalidating that person, right? Just because I would allow somebody, like it goes back to that idea of toleration, right? Just because I would allow somebody to be my teacher either. Just because I would allow someone to be my therapist or my personal trainer does not take away from the fact that I do see them as an invalid individual in a way that a lot of people find to be like this defining moment, right? A lot of us don't give a shit if a person, thinks that we're smart or thinks that we're intelligent or thinks that whatever. But if a person says something like, oh, bitch, you ugly, I wouldn't touch you with a 10-foot pole, all of us are low key like, especially if we find that person to also be attractive, right? But the thing about it is, even if you don't find that person to be attractive, your ego is broken when somebody says that you are not worthy of their time romantically and or sexually or whatever the case may be. And it is because those things are invalidating to our human experience, because our human experience is in large part the idea of showing up in a way that makes other people say, look at that beautiful creature. And when we don't show up in that way, it is hurtful and harmful. So while I do understand the point that you're making about there being able to be a separation or they not being mutually exclusive, I think that if we're talking about the real world, as Gamut says, and if we're talking about what people actually feel and actually think, people are affected by the ways in which they are rejected by folks, i.e. women are affected by the ways that men reject them based on this part of them, but then still allow them to be a part of their life. It's like, and I'll finish it with this. I don't know how many women, and there's only 2 of us here, so you can tell me if you've ever heard this, Jay, where a man has looked you dead in your fucking face and been like, if only you were X, Y, and Z, we would be perfect, or some semblance of that phrase,
Yes.
right?
Uh-huh.
Right. And so it's one of those things where
Thanks,
to
Sebastian.
say that those things aren't mutually exclusive, and I'm not necessarily saying that this person is invaluable as a human being, aren't necessarily true, because when we go into the real world, we're dealing with people's feelings and emotions, and while that might be the pragmatic approach, it is not the realistic approach, right? You cannot say that somebody is great and awesome and cool and you can do this, but bitch, I wouldn't touch you because you
So
a
if
hoe.
you have
Do you think somebody owes you that?
So if you have any preferential characteristics that you expect in a mate, that's bad.
No, but that's the thing. People need to start, it's not that it is bad. It is just like Gambit has been saying this whole time, right? It is fucked up. It's the way of the world. It's not necessarily bad, but that doesn't mean that I have to look over the fact that it's fucked up and that it makes me feel fucked up and that it makes a lot of people feel fucked up. It is okay for it to be a both and situation. I am allowed to say that I understand, I get it, but that shit still hurt my feelings.
Right, but
Do you think it's a better society where we can't
We have no
reject people?
preferences on who we
Like
date.
I think
So. Hope that was. Can I just address it because she was directing that? Part of that was in response to something I
Yeah,
said
sure.
earlier. Really quickly, look, I think you are what Gambit was saying. I had was already typing it out. I was going to say the same thing. Is that you're almost kind
You're a
of
little
removing
quiet.
from
You can go
people
closer to your.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Please.
You're almost removing from people the ability to have discretion, right? Because people should be able to choose for themselves what they deem important. And again, discretionary preferences or even mandates aren't necessarily invalidated as someone's humanity. It might be invalidating of someone's compatibility, right? I mean, God, there's so many different things that would matter to me, right? I know white people are human, but I'm saying a white person isn't suitable for to be my wife because of considering some specific things that I would like to instill in my children, right? That's my thing. Now, I know that they're human beings. I think they're worthy of all dignity, respect, and everything else. I have no ill will towards them whatsoever. It's just this is something that I think is particularly important, that I think is germane to Black people, that they're gonna have. Likewise, when it comes to maybe the installation of specific moral guidelines that are rooted directly in Christianity, a Christian belief. That's something where it's if you're not a Christian, you're not compatible to be my wife. That doesn't mean that I'm devaluing you as a human being. Some of the best people, some of my literal best friends on the planet, one of them, someone I respect with literally all my being, doesn't believe in God. Well, just says he doesn't believe in God. It's I'm not going to change him. I can't make him do that. That doesn't invalidate his intellect and all of the different benefits and the fact that I can confide in this person. All of those are benefits that people can have. You don't, just because someone is incompatible does not mean that they're devalued as a human being. And furthermore, like this thing about like men saying stuff to women about like, oh, if you were X, Y, and Z. I had insane body issues for like the large majority of my life because I was so incredibly skinny my entire freaking life. And the girl that I was most interested in was a much bigger girl, and she was always telling me, nope, I wouldn't date you specifically because you're skinny because you'll make me more self-conscious. That was if you weighed more then whatever, and that gave me probably that and a host of other things that gave me insane body issues. The fact is, women will do the same thing. If you were 6 foot, that would be enough for me, right? Oh, if your penis was bigger, that would be enough for me. If you earned X amount of money, that would be enough for me. There's all sorts of different things. We all have different disqualifiers and different metrics that we think that are important. That's not unique to men at all.
I didn't say that it was. I was just I was speaking from my personal experience, right? There's a difference between me making a statement that generalizes your community and me speaking from my own personal experience as to not speak for you. I think that what I was doing and what I'm trying to get, and I think that that's the thing that went over y'all heads, is that it is not, I'm no longer seeking to debate your points. What I am saying is that both things can be true at one time. What I will say about the idea of preference, right, and the fact that people are just like, oh, so we can't have preferences now. When your preferences are rooted in bullshit, people can feel a way about them. And I think that that's the thing that a lot of folks are missing. It is different when, and what a lot of y'all are missing is the compassion. Yes, it's not anybody's job to hold people's feelings, and we're all adults and we're all responsible for the way that we deal with those things. Internalize them, go to therapy, whatever the fuck you got to do to get over that shit, because it's not my fault that I don't feel X, Y, and Z about you. At the end of the day, the human part and the human compassion in people should say, I understand how that can come off. When you tell somebody, like especially specifically with you, if somebody is a Christian woman and she feels like she is walking the path of Christianity or God or whatever to the best of her ability, and you turn around and tell her she is great, but there are things about her that you don't want to instill in your children, that is fucked up. Like, that is fucked up to hear when somebody genuinely feels like they are walking the best walk and path. And my thing is, while it is not your job to hold those feelings, it's completely, it's almost like a dick move to act as if you don't understand why what you said and how those feelings made her feel. Now, granted, like I just said, stop frowning your face up. It ain't your job to make her feel better.
I love Hope. Oh my God.
It's not your job to make her feel better about it. But what I am saying is, as a human being, the least you could do is understand how that makes someone feel like a tertiary citizen when you say things and when you have those preferences that are based in things that that person feels like they are doing to the best of their ability, right? When you also, like, my thing is the preference that young lady had for you to be bigger, that's not necessarily something that you could change. If you honestly had like a dietary thing and you never, gained those pounds or whatever the case may be, that is something that visibly she just couldn't get over. And then also it sounded like it was a mentally and an emotional thing that she had to also grapple with. But when we are talking about things that people feel like are a part of who they are and a part of the person that they like, how they walk around in this earth, and the parts of the things that they contribute to people, and you say that this thing that makes you fundamentally you is the reason why I can't fuck with you, but I still fuck with you, it's like the biggest oxymoron in the world. And it makes people feel like what you really saying is, bitch, you could do this for me, but don't you ever try to skate that line, because I'm going to embarrass you and hurt your feelings, whether that's my intention or not. And that, it's
There's
really
too
a
much-
both end situation.
No, but there's too much.
I'm sure you feel that way too, though.
Yeah.
No, but there's too much aggression in there, and there's way too much underlying like
Stop being
ideology.
angry, black woman. Stop being angry, black
Not the
woman. Bring
angry
it
black
back.
woman first.
Wait,
Y'all
but
just
that
spent
wasn't
30
my.
minutes-
I know.
y'all
I'm
just spent 30
playing.
minutes
Of all
undermining
the
each
phrases,
other.
man. Come on.
Right. Y'all just spent 30 minutes undermining each other. And I literally sit here and calmly explain to you how it is a both and without undermining your opinion. I literally say, I understand what you're saying. I'm not devaluing what you're saying. What I
But
am
you're
saying
assigning.
is that understanding that there is nuance to the situation should be something that you should understand. And I'm angry.
Of course. Wait, who said you were angry?
Now, what I could have did was come up in here and said, bitch, you stupid as fuck. And that shit was dumb as fuck. It was whack as
Wait,
fuck.
no.
What you said was lame. That is
Wait,
me
wait.
being angry.
Wait,
right?
Prime directed the angry statement at me. I never said that you were being angry. What?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just messing with you. I apologize. I was just messing with you.
Please don't.
Oh, okay. He was saying that at you. Okay, I was like, what?
That-
Okay, he was.
No,
Okay, because I was like, what the?
No.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I was just joking. I'm sorry.
It was a joke. It was a joke. Okay, good. Because I was like, what? All right. So like here, the thing is, I feel like it's almost like a really, really, really uncharitable interpretation, right? Because there, again, like there are plenty of women that might say, again, like this is something that could be fundamentally me. Like I would say that my Christianity, my spiritual beliefs are fundamentally me, and I know plenty of women that would say that's incompatible with me. There are plenty of women who are like atheists or who are like some other religion, who maybe they'll be Catholic or Mormon, and it's like no, we're totally different like beliefs, and so because of that, like no, you're not compatible for raising my children because I'm going to raise my children Catholic, right? And like, and I don't have to look at that as some sort of attack on me as a person. I don't have to take that as like grossly offensive. That's just a matter of hey, like I disagree with the thing that you're saying. I mean, I disagree with this thing, or these are things that are compatible, right? It could be height again. Like it's like, yo, like I'm sorry, like this is something that's attractive to me. Or maybe it might be like I said, a penis size. That's something that's fundamental, right? A person can't change or alter that. But a woman
Hope said
knows
she
what
don't
the
like those. Hope
huh?
don't like small penises.
Right, but a woman doesn't get a woman can't control. I mean, a man can't change that about himself. But there are plenty of women that'll say, yeah, if a nigga's a baby dick, then yeah, that would be whatever. If we were to ask most women, if a man had a literal micro penis, that would probably be a deal breaker for a great amount of women. And it sucks, right? Like that's just part of life. But like at the end of the day, like people have different things. Sexual compatibility matters. Mental compatibility. I had a person that I thought I was incredibly attracted to. Amazing, but like really, really attractive, but just mentally, it was just I realized, man, we're not compatible. And like for me, that's a huge, huge deal. And I realized, man, I'm gonna be unhappy long term if I just like settle for this, and I'm gonna get more and more frustrated as the relationship goes on. It's probably better for me to exit that. That's not me invalidating her as a human being. There are plenty of people that don't want a particularly smart person. There are plenty of people who are not that smart themselves and would be like, yo, that would be intimidated by a particularly smart woman. We know how insecure men can be around like incredibly intelligent women sometimes. So that doesn't mean necessarily that like you're invalidating that person as a human being. I'm saying we are not compatible. But just because a person isn't compatible doesn't mean it doesn't have value. It just means it doesn't have value for in that specific space or that specific role for me.
I'm gonna go to Wiggle and then I'm gonna Chris. I just want to say something quickly though. Like, but this is what we're talking about in terms of these dating preferences, right? It's not, and I think Hope was getting to this before, and Hope that was a joke previously. I was like joking at Fanatiq about you, so I didn't want to, yeah, okay. But yeah, Hope was getting to this, right? That like the consequences of these preferences, right? Like when they they don't go in your direction, like the consequences are more dire for women. But beyond that, right, these consequences, oh fuck, I'm blanking, holy shit, sorry. These your preferences, yes, you can have preferences. I'm sorry, you can have individual preferences, right? Like no one's saying that you can't, but the reason why you have these things matters, right? Why do you feel this way? You're saying like, well, some guys like they don't like smart women. Well, why don't they like smart women, right? Well, one,
they're insecure about it for themselves.
Sorry, what?
Because they're insecure about their own.
Yeah, well, they're insecure about themselves. That's one thing, right? But it's also because then you have an individual who could push back on you, who is not so easily controlled. Same reason why some guys don't want their woman to make more money than
that's
them,
a possibility,
right?
Prime, but that's not all of it.
Not
right?
all of
you
it.
agree
I
that
didn't say that.
Okay.
I didn't say that, right? But like,
I'm just making sure.
Okay, fair enough, right? But that's not the only reason. But for many, that's what it is, right? I want to be able to control her, right? Like it works for me. It works in my favor when I do that. So like you can have all these preferences, but and no one's saying you can't. You absolutely can. But yeah, it can make you feel shitty. That is the way of the world. Like dating is a very discriminatory activity, right? Like the most discriminatory, where it's really up to your own preferences. But where do those preferences come from? What are the end results of those preferences? Do those preferences build on and continue a system that ends up devaluing women? Now, you yourself may not be devaluing that woman, right? But it doesn't mean you're not adding to a fucked up situation, right? You yourself may decide that, you know what, why is the only thing that I'm going to be involved, only woman I'm being involved with, but still,
a little bit
I mean, you might be devaluing other people, right? Like you could do that if that's what you want to do, but that doesn't mean that's not fucked up, and it doesn't have. It's not a part of a long-standing tradition that hurts a certain group of people. I hope
Well, I
that
agree. That's why I
makes
said the
any
dudes in
sense.
that video, as I said from the very beginning, and I mean this, the guys in that video, they did sound incredibly misogynistic, and they did sound pretty immoral to me. Like the fact that they felt like, oh man, yeah, I'm a champ if I'm banging however, whatever, and yada yada yada. I'm allowed to have any kind of whole phase that I want to, and then they're saying that women can't have that whole phase. I think that's gross. I don't believe in that kind of thing. I don't really look at it any differently. I think most people, I think all people, and I'm sorry, not most, I think all people should be a little bit more sexually conservative, but that's my belief system. Everybody gets to live the way they want to. But considering
True.
that those dudes didn't have that view about themselves, then it does seem it's definitely misogynistic that they don't that they have a different that different attitude towards women.
Wiggle, Chris.
I think the point's been addressed at this point. I was just gonna add to the point the sentiment that is like people have preferences and they should have the right to have their own preferences. It's just about looking at why they have them and then looking at them and seeing if there's like a good reason or not. And then it doesn't mean you can impose something on those individuals. So if there's somebody that is like they grew up in an area that everybody is like Asian and they're like white, and then they see beauty through the lens of like Asian individuals because when they went to school, the most attractive people were Asian. And they looked at women and they sexualized Asian women or what have you, and then they go throughout their life and they're like, this is in their mind like the ideal of beauty, and they look at that and they think about their boys back home and they think about the people they talk to, and they're like, for whatever reason, this is what clicks. That's not inherently wrong. It's just how that's how they were raised. That's how they grew up. That's the environment they lived in. But then if they were to say like black women are less attractive than Asian women, and that's why, or like they were to say like like white women are less attractive than Asian women, we would look at that and then we'd say it's cool if you have like a preference, but this is kind of weird on that angle. We'd look at it differently. Or the another example is like height. There's people that are like, I want to be with somebody that is extremely tall. I'm like, as if I'm not 6'1", so I'm not over 6 feet. I think that's like, damn, that really sucks for me. That's fucked up. But can I really say that to an individual, knowing that people who are taller have easier lives? There's more success for somebody that is a taller individual. So if you're a woman that is like a certain height, let's say you're 6 something yourself or what have you, or let's say you're a man that's over the height of like 6 foot, why wouldn't you like want the preference of looking for someone else that's very tall so that your children have a higher likelihood of being tall so they don't have a better life? So I could look at that and see there's some form of reasoning that is acceptable to me, even if there is like a level of prejudice in a way. It's like, all right, this makes more sense than another. But underlying all of these, you should have the right to have sex as long as the person can consent, they're of the age, everything. You should have that right to have those sexual preferences no matter what.
People have the same right to those unjust reasons too. Like it's nice to
Yeah.
ask people to unpack, like, oh, unpack why you feel this way. But like people are also justified in like, oh, like, oh, you're fetishizing. Like maybe so. But if that's what they want to do and they can find someone else that like okay with that, then like as individuals, there's literally nothing we can do to people. Like I don't know, it's become this new thing that we ask, like we try to think we can make people unpack their beliefs or why they hold a preference or why they do. Like you really can't do that on the individual level. You have no right, and they don't have to prove anything to you. Come back, Chris.
No, you're right. I don't have much more to say about this. It's just that find it weird. With this whole thing started with body count. If a person that you're dating is otherwise perfect for you, right? They're a Christian, and just to use a Fanatiq's example, like they're a perfect Christian, right? They live like a perfectly what is it? I just lost the
Yeah,
word.
they're
Someone who
they're
lives
Christian.
if they live to like equal standards as you, if they make your life smooth and like you enjoy your time together, figuring out that she had like 20 or 30 partners, why would that change anything?
I can
If
answer that.
like you like settled on you two wanting to be together.
I can answer that.
But okay.
So if you're a person that is dating to want to have kids, there could be certain subjects where you don't want a incongruence of belief between the two parents. So there are certain conversations that you may not want to even be on the table to be discussed. So someone could have the view that, hey, I don't want to have to argue with my kid's parent about whether or not we should promote promiscuity to my kid, right? So just because that person could be everything else that you want doesn't mean that that one quality couldn't be a deal breaker.
Wait, hold on. Would promote promiscuity? That has nothing to do with it, right? If they live the way you want them, like if they have the same beliefs, right? Both of you, like, all right, we both don't want this to happen. We both don't want to promote this to our kids, right? But this person, the other person, has had that many people.
Oh, you're saying they're like reformed. They don't hold the view. Wait. No. Wait. You're saying, hold on, wait. I'm just trying to make sure I'm understanding the parameters that you're putting up. You're saying that this person was promiscuous in the past, but now they hold the belief that promiscuity is a bad thing. Is that what you're saying?
No,
because it didn't sound like that's what you were saying earlier.
No, you don't have to promote like promiscuity to your kids if you just because you're promiscuous, right? You can just teach them to live have a healthy like sex life.
That's a little
right?
harder. You gotta be
and
like.
maybe
I don't
that
agree with Gambit's take on on this personal issue, but his overall take, like, come on, like if you live a certain life, how are you gonna explain unless you don't believe in it anymore? How are you gonna explain it to your kids when they want to do that shit? Like if I had like a parent that was doing something, like let's say I had a parent that was like smoking cigarettes all the time, and whenever they were stressed, how am I expected to like listen to them when they say don't smoke cigarettes, even if they truly don't like it?
Hey, don't be
Because
out
I'll
there
be like, I
smoking.
see it around, and I'm gonna be like, I associate it with when they're stressed, they
Wait,
smoke cigarettes.
This thing
You
The
know?
doesn't have to
assumption
be
is that with
present.
promiscuity that they stopped that, right?
You're right. Like if you in a relationship and you want to get married with a person who wants to get married to
Yeah.
you, right? They don't want to live. They don't want to be promiscuous anymore. They're settling down.
That doesn't mean they don't
But
hold the
they
value that
were like
single
that.
people. Yeah,
They
but
were
how do
like
you
that
not
in the
get this,
past.
Chris?
So
It
like
was
if
your
they,
hypothetical, and you don't understand it.
it's like they were that way in the
what?
past.
No,
So
because you make
when you're their age, what like so if like somebody was promiscuous like when they were younger and then they don't feel a way about it and then they end up marrying like Gambit who feels a type of way about that and then they're raising their kid, how are you going to explain to your kid like, well, like why would you want to get in an argument with like your significant other about raising your kid in that way if like the kid is always going to be able to bring up the point, well, like mom agrees with me, look at what she did, and mom, do you
why would you
disagree?
even be saying like what is this? Like what, like I
But
would
there's no
I
Wait,
have
you
way
no
want you don't want
idea. I have
you don't
no
think
idea
you
if
think
my
we should
mom
have more sex education, but people shouldn't talk about how they personally feel about sex and their kids? What is this?
No, that's not what
What
I'm
is
saying.
this?
Like, this is making any sense because you're talking about like I'm talking about people like having a change of heart, right? They don't want to be promiscuous and they get into a relationship with someone, right? They
But you just
change
said that that's not
I
like
asked you
he
that,
asked
and you
you.
literally didn't answer the
Like if
question.
that's what you
because
mean, I
because
would
people
agree
keep
with you.
talking, right? Like whatever.
No,
Like
nobody cut
the-
you off. We saw you all fumble it, and we were like thinking you had lost brains, and like we all
no, because
saw
you
it.
asked
I
a
didn't
All
question
of
and
us.
I
fall, bro.
didn't make
Like
I didn't think
I
it
don't
makes any
speak.
sense.
Gibbet speaks for himself. I thought Gibbet had asked you that, and then you
I did. No, you
denied
didn't
He
think
that,
did
that.
he did
You heard
and
me.
ask
then
it. I
You
did not
heard me
deny
asking
it.
that.
I'm like, what's the issue? Like, why is that an issue if someone changes in that way? What makes them? What about
I
that body
thought you
count
said that they
devalues?
didn't. I thought you said
Yeah,
they didn't change their minds. They were like
everyone
okay
thought,
with
not
that.
just you,
No,
brother.
I
I'll be
thought that
nice.
they did change their mind and their actions. I
If
was
they're
I thought
not,
he was
if
very
they're
clear on that.
marrying, that means they're not being promiscuous anymore, right?
Oh,
That
but
means
that
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 they're
wouldn't
No,
Chris, do you not
necessarily
understand
be
this?
the
that
same
doesn't also necessarily
because
mean.
like
Chris,
what I was
I
describing is
swear he did
oh, I was
specify that.
almost on your
if
side, Chris.
No, he did
what are
specify
you
that
saying?
until he fumbled it right there. That was a fumble.
Okay,
No,
okay.
he
I
said the
believe that
same
was a
thing
fumble.
earlier.
No,
He
he
said
I
didn't.
that
said the
earlier.
same thing
No, he
earlier.
didn't.
Yes, he did.
I
Word for
did.
word.
even in the exam, like he's clarified at this point. Even in
Hold on,
this
wait.
example, it's like
Hold on, wait.
if you
Chris,
did
Chris,
something,
can you tell Django word for word you said that same thing earlier?
Did you say that
it's
they're
not that important.
you said
Like he
they're
messed up, he didn't mess up. He clarified what he meant.
I don't
No,
understand what anyone's saying because
Chris,
everyone's talking.
Chris
hold on.
just said he said it word for word.
Do you mean right now that this person is only having a change of heart via marriage, or hey, they think to themselves, I don't think promiscuity is good. I don't want my children to be promiscuous. I'm not gonna preach that. Is that what you're saying, or are you saying that just by virtue of them marrying, they are not going to be promiscuous, and that makes them suitable?
Yes.
That's what he said.
Which one?
That's like,
Wait, wait.
Okay, then yeah.
Yeah,
I was with the-
Thank you.
So like yeah, what I'm saying is that like it would still be an argument. It's kind of like if you are if you got married and that's the thing that stopped you from being like, let's say, promiscuous, then what's going to happen in your family if like you have a child that says, but when you were this age, you were like me. And then let's say the parent says, yeah, like I was okay with that when I was that age. I don't think anything bad about it at all. They would likely get in an argument with Gambit because Gambit would be like, no, I don't want that
But this
message
is
to
the
be
reason
sent to
why
our
I
kid.
would like. This is the
You
reason
can't
like, I don't
prevent
like.
that from happening by not y'all do realize that this is such a broad, like this particular conversation is such a broad conversation, right? You cannot prevent that from happening because we've all done some shit, had an experience or something
talking
of
about
that
Well,
that might come up in that
we're not talking about
conversation, right?
preventing. We're talking about a
Yeah, he's talking
consolidated
about
view on certain
yeah.
issues when addressing them to your
But
kid.
you are
We're not
No,
saying
no,
that
no.
this
This
is
is
talking
going
why.
about
to prevent.
This is
prevention
why
of
the
having to
difference.
have a conversation. You
No,
are
no, no,
talking about prevention.
no, no.
You're
This is
talking
why the
about
difference.
preventing having to have that
No,
conversation.
This is why the difference in what Chris was saying was very huge because it's the difference of she doesn't believe in this versus
yes.
she doesn't believe
exactly.
it until she does, right? That's why I thought when I was on Chris's side, I was assuming what he meant was, hey, she does not believe in this 100%.
And that's
She
why I was
is
telling y'all,
that's
no.
Yeah,
yeah,
Yes.
and
and in that case, yeah.
even though we can't necessarily control for specific outcomes, though, right? You would agree that for some things we just want to be able to instill certain values or attempt to, even if like children aren't going to completely hold to that. Like I was obviously raised to wait until marriage and all sorts of things, right? We deviate from things just being young. But like the when it comes to like children planning, right, like your idea is me and my partner will make a concerted effort in instilling specific values and trying to like encourage our kids to be and do and behave in specific
Okay,
ways.
yeah,
But if me and my partner do not agree on those things, then we're gonna have a really
that's another that's a whole other story. What I'm saying
Yeah.
is,
No, that's this
if they,
that
actual
was
topic.
Gambit's
You just
question.
misunderstand it. No, you just don't
hold on, let
understand
me
how it
like
relates.
can I
That's
address
this topic.
can I address Fanatic like without like Gambit just keeps confusing things. All right. I
I am
like if
confused.
you're getting into a relationship
Jesus.
and you guys set your boundaries of your relationship and how you want to raise your kids, right? But still in this past, this like your partners had this experience, right? Does that make them less compatible? Right?
Not
That's my
necessarily.
question.
Well, no, not necessarily.
If you go, sorry.
No, not necessarily, but Gambit was directly asking you about that person's beliefs. And if the person currently holds the belief, then that would make them less compatible. But if we agree on the belief, then in my opinion, because I'm not one who particularly cares about that body count, right? Like it's not like I don't care. Do I think it's
That's
a good thing? Like no, but I don't really care about body
that's the
count.
way I
But
set up my like question, right? And I was only
Yeah.
using the Christianity example because it was an easy one to go to, right? Not that like trying to use you as an example, but like if someone like is like living like a life you agree with, right, at a point, and you guys are having a good relationship and you want to get married, but there's this thing of her having a body count, right? Does that make her less viable as a partner just on GP, just for having the body count alone? That's what my question was.
oh, okay,
So I was like, where is this like?
Oh.
Why do people have this issue
Mm,
with the body count in that way? That's
not
I think people have
necessarily.
like a general.
Well,
Not
we
saying
did.
you
like we're-
Fanatic.
To
No,
be
I
fair,
definitely
we
just feel
did
like
go
we're
over.
touching the analogy and then missing it. And
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. So
I'm not able to follow right now.
in
I'm
the
sorry.
idea,
I'm
in the
sorry.
situation where like we want to instill something in our kids and they don't believe that, that's a whole different scenario than like virtue of just sort of their body count alone. These are two
Yeah,
separate
that's
thoughts.
why like I did.
Yeah.
Gavin brought in the kids, and
And
like I did, like that's why I got confused. I'm like, why?
Yeah,
are we
I
bringing in kids
confused
in-
everyone.
Yeah,
It was all
it-
yes,
to be
it was
fair,
me.
Yeah,
It's
Chris,
like-
you did confuse
The
me.
villain.
I'm not
It's
even
like
sure. Yeah.
if like
It's always a
like
what about
I
the
like
children?
I like playing games. I like video games. I like gaming. I like that kind of stuff. Let's say I find somebody who, let's say I make more money in the future, and then I find someone and they don't give a shit that I do that because I provide and I make money and then we work together. But let's say they don't have the same viewpoint about those hobbies that I have. If we have children, they're going to be taking a stance that the kids cannot be playing games. They can't be playing games a lot of the time. There should be restrictions on video game usage, etc. Like that doesn't really fly for me. That's one of those things where it's like perhaps that person does want to have a kid. That person's completely compatible with me. But when it comes to like the expectations we'd have of our children, we would get in arguments all the time over that. Like I wouldn't let somebody enforce these things on my children, and she wouldn't let me like enforce these things on our children as well. So it's like it's one of those situations where like I understand what Gambit's saying, even if I don't agree with his original, like his specific take, his overarching viewpoint. I would agree. Like you'd want to have as many consolidated opinions or like as many compromises with the person you're in a relationship with over how to raise your children because you're raising kids. You know, you don't want to like have to
Yeah,
raise each other. You don't want to argue with each other.
I understand that, but like when I started my question, I was like the idea of a body count in general, right? What is the main issue? All right, like we're gonna like drag it to kids back to kids again. I wasn't trying to do that, right? I was just trying to see. That's all I was trying to root
and
root
one
it
of the
down. So
sorry, I'm sorry. I said
yeah, I was just trying to cut out some things, right? I use Christianity as an example because I just went to that because that's what Fanatiq was just talking about last, right? I wasn't saying like in general with Christianity. I'm just saying like like with any person, right, that has an issue with a person's body count. If you like control for all those factors, like they live the same, like they're living the way you like you agree with, like everything is fine, right? You guys having a good relationship, they're not sleeping around, and you guys agree to be monogamous, and you are monogamous. That history of a body count, what is the like? Is there still an issue there, right?
Okay,
And I
here,
think
I'll
a lot
explain
of
it.
people
I can explain it really
still have that
quickly.
issue.
I can explain it really quickly. The issue would be not just in where the way their current lifestyle is, it would be around their belief system. Because if they believe that the lifestyle of promiscuity, which would be what would be what causes the high body count, if they believe that that's okay, then that means you're going to run into some difficulty in trying to inculcate a more chaste like ideology within your children, right? Like
I thought he said that. I thought he said that
I'll
she
say it as simply.
disagreed with
Hold on,
that.
maybe I'll say it as simply as possible. If you don't think it's good, I mean, if you don't think having a body count is bad, a high body count is bad, you can't support me when I'm trying to tell my child to not have a high body count.
Yeah, that's a very hard way to parent a kid. If the two parents don't agree, it's very hard to like agree on a way to parent the kid.
Does that make sense, Chris?
I guess the way I'm thinking of it is you can instill that in the kids all you want. It's just when I found out that they have a high body count, I won't stigmatize them for it. So
Wait,
it's like,
no, wait.
I'm just giving my
thing.
personal.
I got you.
Right,
That's a different thing, right? Because I don't care what you do once they have that. We're talking about a goal and an aim. Our aim is to instill a value into our child, and you disagree with me on that value. Do you get why that would be problematic for child rearing?
Yes, that's problematic. But if you control for that, right, and the person agrees with that, right, then is the body count still an issue? And I think it would be for a lot of people. And I'm trying to get to that question, right?
Okay.
Like if they had the body count and now they feel bad about it and they've
They
changed.
don't have to feel bad about it. Or
But
anything.
I'm just
They don't
saying
feel
anything they've
about it.
changed. That
What
like
is
just
the
for the
issue?
sake of your question.
Well, okay, so
Well, they
Chris, what it
changed,
is
then they
is
can explain why.
right. So what you did is you mitigated for one of the reasons, right? But then there are other reasons why people would have a problem with the body count. For some people, they like as the people in those videos, they believed that the body count was indicative of maybe a lack of sagacity on the part of the woman in being able to recognize the behavior of like predatory men, right? And maybe that might not result in like her cheating necessarily, but clearly she's gullible enough that now that means that I have to be a little bit more protective of her just in general. Maybe not in just chastity, but on other areas, right? So like
But we all agree
that was
that's
another
wrong.
one.
But
What do
all
you
agree-
mean?
Like that's a dumb way of thinking.
I
Like,
don't agree with that. I'm sorry.
It also feels really circular to say that like I need you to have a low body count because I think it's bad and I need to tell my kids that I think having a low body count is bad. Like it feels very circular. It seems like you can't really
it feels
justify it.
presuppositional.
Wait,
right?
I
It
have a
feels
question.
I think
axiomatic.
to that point is the thing.
Wait.
Like,
So
if you
even if
don't
the
agree
woman doesn't change-
fundamentally. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, even if the woman has a change of heart, I'm sorry because I was thinking about something. I may have missed it, my bad. But even if the woman has a full change of heart, she doesn't believe that anymore, but she did do that in the past. You wouldn't be okay with that, right? Just making sure.
For me, I wouldn't have a problem with it personally.
But do you think it can be the position can be consistent? Like someone else can hold that position from some like.
Wait, what?
Yeah, of course. Like because
I'm
it's like
now.
if you've changed,
I mean, I always was right. Like, and I have these values now. I had the values then, but I just wasn't living the way I was supposed to. Like, so yeah, people change. We're like part of the main ideology about Christian is being is about like recognizing like of changing away from like old lifestyle and things like that, right? So like clearly I know that people can reform and have totally different mentalities. You're born again as a Christian, so clearly if there's some woman that like had some like old ways, then that would be I have people who are close to me, males who are close to me, that like that was like a concern for them, like when they got into their relationships, explaining to the women that they were with, like, listen, I was
out here in these streets. Like, it was problematic. And he knew it was problematic. Like, yo, that was really bad of me during that time. It was pretty absurd. Even me. It was like, what the freak is going on with you? You got a problem. Used to literally say it to him all the time. So this idea, like some people just have this value that like this is a thing. Like you want people to not have insanely high body counts. Those dudes didn't, which makes them inconsistent and gross. But other people, some people just really don't like the idea of sexual promiscuity. For some people, it's like just the belief that like with sexual is like the sharing of a person and sharing of spirits and all that, whatever. So then that can be a cause for it. Like there's all sorts of different ideology behind like the idea of promiscuity or not. It varies.
So can I real quick roll it back, because I'm not sure if we already. So I know Fanatiq doesn't believe this very obviously, but I think Gambit may. So back with the whole topic of the exception for women versus men, right? And we went into the whole dangers of it being like, hey, you're more likely to get pregnant, and stuff like that. You would still hold in that situation. You believe women should have a low body count because it's dangerous. It's more dangerous for them to have a higher body. Yes, and it causes more harms.
So I, even though I used to engage in it frequently, I don't necessarily think it was. I don't think it was a good thing for sure. I think the dangers for women are more, so I do put more emphasis on that. But I do think generally, outside of certain age ranges, we should discourage it for sure.
Okay,
And that's
so
what
for
I said
both
in my
parties,
opening.
for both parties, right?
Yeah, and that's what I said in my opening, right?
Then
Remember I said in my opening, I said, hey, I think if you're like below college, like it's wild to be promiscuous. And I think that if you're like in your 30s, hopefully you have something to lose, and it's wild to be doing that. But maybe there are certain years in your 20s where I think it may even be appropriate, because I know a lot of people who didn't have that experience and now they're like dealing with it in their 30s that like they didn't have a whole phase or whatever we want to call it, and like it's causing problems for them now. So like I generally think it's bad, but I do think there are certain age ranges where maybe it is okay. But I would still say, even though I think it's okay, then it's still weird. I don't know how to square it all the way, but that's generally my view.
Sure, I thought at some point like we established that Fanatiq was more like low body count for both or high body count for both. Like that's kind of like the two situations you can hold, and he's on the low body count for both. And I thought you were kind of on like it doesn't matter because low body count for women, high body count for men. That's okay.
No, I wasn't never on that side. Yeah, no problem.